A new teacher named Haruaki was on his way to start at a different school. He loved the idea and felt excited during his journey. The city where the school was located was stunning, filled with many restaurants and shops, which impressed and delighted him. From a distance, he spotted the school and said, "That's got to be it." It looked beautiful. He checked his map and confirmed, "Yes, this is the right place." Haruaki remembered his time at a high school a year ago. It was his first day there. He was watching how things worked. He was very timid once a student threatened him, making him nervous. After only half an hour, he ran away and couldn't finish the day. In fact, he stayed home for a whole year, avoiding going out. He thought this was terrible and considered himself quite cowardly. Still, he decided to go to the new school, telling himself, "I will be a good teacher. This school looks great, and their uniforms are respectable." He was full of enthusiasm on his first day at the new school. Determined to become a better teacher, he was ready to face his challenges bravely. When he arrived, the high school students saw the principal standing behind him. The principal said, "Welcome. You must be the new teacher, Haruaki." Haruaki replied, "You are the principal. How are you?" The principal answered, "I'm grateful you came. I invited you to teach here." Haruaki responded, "I should be the one thanking you for the invitation." The principal continued, "Your family has helped me a lot before, and I'm thankful to them. I hope you'll stay to teach our students." Haruaki said, "I can't handle all these kind words." The principal then led Haruaki to his classroom and said, "Come on, hero. The students are waiting for you." Haruaki replied, "Don't worry. I'll do my best. I'll be a very good teacher." He felt extremely excited. When he entered the classroom, he saw that the students looked like monsters with supernatural powers, called yokai. He exclaimed, "What is this? Are all of you yokai?" Quickly, he shut the door and said, "I think I've entered the wrong room. I'm sorry." The principal noticed Haruaki's surprised look as he quickly left. He asked, "Do you understand what's happening in the classroom?" Haruaki replied, "No. What's going on?" The principal said, "Nothing major. The students are just arguing." Haruaki was shocked. "What are they arguing about? I saw yokai everywhere. What is this place?" The principal explained, "This is a special school where all yokai students from across Japan come to learn. It's designed especially for them." He continued, "You are the first human teacher to work with us here." Suddenly, Haruaki started running, trying to escape, but the principal appeared everywhere, saying, "I'm a yokai too. And that's normal. We handle it naturally." Then he grabbed Haruaki's hand and said, "Come on, go back to your class." Haruaki shouted, "No, let me go!" Suddenly, something star-shaped with supernatural powers appeared from the principal's hand, but Haruaki didn't recognize it. He backed away so much that the principal got hurt. The principal then said, "Haruaki, I wasn't meant to be a teacher anyway. I'll work in a bakery." He gently pushed Haruaki back into the classroom with his cane. Inside, Haruaki was terrified and couldn't speak. He ran and hid under a desk, scared out of his mind. The students watched him, wondering, where did he go? 40 minutes passed without Haruaki coming out. The students started talking among themselves. Is he dead, or is he going to come out? Suddenly, a student named Sano-ko stood up and approached him. "What's wrong with you, sir?" he asked. Haruaki replied, "I'm human." Sano-ko said, "You're never going to come out from under the desk, are you?" Haruaki responded, "I was just about to." But Haruaki got stuck under the desk. So Sano-ko said, "Come on, give me your hand. Get out." When he grabbed Haruaki's hand, the teacher's clothes suddenly tore off. At that moment, the girls in the class started screaming, "What's this? How did you do that?" Suddenly, a short student in the class asked Sano-ko, "What did you do? How long have you been using your power?" Sano-ko replied, "I didn't mean to. I was just a little upset." The teacher, feeling embarrassed, thought to himself, "What's going on? This is the first time something like this has happened to me. Someone greets me, and my clothes tear so easily." The principal entered the room and said, "You need to understand, there's no reason to be afraid of your students." Haruaki responded, "I'm not afraid because they're students. I'm afraid because they're transforming yokai." The principal reassured him, saying, "Don't worry, I'll give you a book about the Transformers so you can learn more about them, and another book on the school uniform." Haruaki liked the principal so much that he asked, "This book is for me?" The principal smiled and replied, "Yes, it's for you. I believe in you." He added, "If you do well, I'll give you a special uniform of your own." Feeling grateful, Haruaki returned to the classroom, his eyes filled with excitement and confidence. He introduced himself to the students, saying, "I'm Haruaki," then wrote his name on the board and told them, "And I'm human too." When the students learned this, they all said, "How can you be human and still be here with us?" Sano-ko then asked, "Are you going to cry now? Or what?" Haruaki thought, this student is not going to be easy, but he kept speaking normally. He began taking attendance, calling each student one by one, trying to learn more about their powers. When he called Sano-ko, the student didn't respond, making Haruwaki suspicious. He thought, I'm sure he'll do something, but decided to ignore it and carried on with the class as usual. Afterward, he prepared to give his first lesson, introducing the students to some important things about the school. Haruwaki called on the next student, the shortest one in class, and said, "This student is absent today because he's at his sister's wedding and hasn't arrived yet." Haruwaki replied, "Thank you for letting me know." Then he asked, "What's your name?" Just then, the absent student walked into the room and said, "Hey everyone, I'm back, and I've brought some wonderful things for you." He added, "I've missed you all so much." Haruwaki, confused, asked, "What's going on? Who are you?" The student introduced himself. Upon finding out that Haruwaki was human, the student aggressively attacked him, hitting him hard and knocking him to the ground. The short student stepped in and said, "I forgot to mention something. I don't like humans because my brother, a yokai, married a human. Ever since then, I've hated all humans." Haruwaki stood there in shock, thinking, is this student going to take his anger out on me? Why doesn't he just confront his sister instead? I didn't do anything to him. As he pondered this, the angry student, named Heiju, who had the power to control mud, began attacking him with his abilities. Haruwaki tried to defend himself, but the situation only worsened. Heiju shouted, "I don't want to hear your voice again, get out of here." Then, using his magic, Heiju trapped Haruwaki in a large pit of mud. From inside the pit, Haruwaki protested, "I didn't do anything to you. I haven't even come near you." But Heiju responded, "We yokai always enjoy hitting humans who are with us. If you don't like it, you can go back to your school, where everyone is like you." Suddenly, while lying on the ground, Haruwaki said, "I can't go back there. I was there before, and I wasn't happy at all. I faced so many problems. Even elementary students would tease me. I was weak, and no one treated me well. I didn't have a single friend since I came into this world." Haruwaki continued, "And despite everything, I became a teacher. Maybe I can make something of myself and actually talk to the students." He looked at them and said, "I'm sorry for being human, but that's something I can't change." As he looked around, he noticed the students were starting to show some sympathy. One of them said, "Okay, I was just joking." But another voice interrupted, "No, you weren't joking." Haruwaki responded, "You're exaggerating. You were serious." Then he said, "Let's continue with the roll call." He called out a girl's name, but no one answered. The short student explained, "She hasn't been here since the beginning of winter." Haruwaki asked, "How is that possible? We have a class photo session tomorrow and everyone needs to be there. I'll have to go talk to her and convince her to come back." Heiju commented, "If she finds out you're coming, she'll never return." Determined, Haruwaki set off for the girls' dormitory, where the absent student was staying, bringing Sanoko and the short student with him. The short student warned, "Be careful, you're still unknown in the girls' dormitory, and they might not treat you well." Haruwaki sighed and asked, "Why does it feel like everyone here dislikes me? Why do I keep running into problems?" The student replied, "That's just how things work around here. But don't worry, I'm on alert. We brought Sanoko with us, and we're ready." Heiju added, "Stay quiet. Nothing will happen. I'm going to bring back the student for tomorrow's photo shoot." "That girl," Haruwaki chimed in. "Among the transformed ones, some are supposed to have better luck than others. If I manage to bring her back, maybe my luck will turn around too." Sanoko, unimpressed, said, "You don't actually believe that, do you?" Haruwaki quickly responded, "No, of course not. There's nothing like that. In fact, I'll check the book I have and see what it says about her." He then turned to the short student and asked, "Hey, what does the book say about me?" The student replied, "Let's open it and find out." They opened the book together, and Haruwaki read, "Short transformable ones can only transform if you place a paper on their head or put nuts on their heads." Haruwaki, baffled, asked, "Is this for real?" The student laughed and replied, "Of course not. I can't use my powers like that. This book is really old. Look at the date. It's 200 years old. We're in the 21st century now." Haruwaki continued flipping through the book and asked Sanoko, "I didn't find anything written about you or about others like you who transform." But Sanoko remained silent. Haruwaki turned away, and the short student remarked, "Look, not only is this book old, but it's also incomplete." They left the book aside and went to the house of the absent girl. They knocked on the door, but she refused to open it. Haruwaki asked, "What do we do now?" The short student grinned and said, "I have an idea. I'll place a paper on my head to transform, then I'll get inside." True to his word, he transformed into smoke and slipped through the keyhole. Once inside, Haruwaki voiced his concerns. "What we're doing might be wrong." Sanoko agreed, "Yes, this really feels wrong." Inside the house, the short student discovered that the girl had placed a spell on the door. Suddenly, 300 magical strikes shot out, forcing him to retreat and return outside. Then, a note slid out from under the door, and after opening it, the girl threatened them, demanding they leave her alone or face consequences. Angered, Haruwaki muttered, "No one respects me, no matter where I go. But whatever, this isn't the first time." Suddenly, the short student received a message from a classmate informing them that this girl had posted online, announcing that a human teacher was trying to break into her house. Annoyed, Sanoko said, "What's this? They're still kids. Every time something happens, they go online and post about it." They called out to her, but she only responded, "Leave me alone." Haruwaki placed his hand on the door and shouted, "Open up!" Suddenly, a star appeared from his hand, and the door flew open. The short student asked, "What's going on? Is there a strong wind or something?" The teacher replied, "I don't know. I guess I'm just lucky." Haruwaki entered the house, calling for the girl. "Are you here? Where are you?" When he found her, she snapped, "Shut up! I'm busy saving the world from danger. Can't you see?" Haruwaki asked, "Sorry, but what are you doing?" The girl responded, "Yes, I'm playing. But this game is really important." She then asked, "How did you all get in here? And how dare you enter my room?" Sanoko questioned, "How long are you going to keep hiding from us like this?" She didn't reply, but the short student noticed, "Wait, isn't that the game you got from class?" The girl answered, "Yes, it's the game I started. It was so good that I finished it in a day. Then Heiju promised to bring me the second part, and since then, I've been hooked and can't leave the screen." Everyone collectively responded, "What kind of boring life is this? Are you really spending all your time on games, just sitting here?" Haruwaki added, "I thought something serious was keeping you from school, and here I am, pleading with you to come back. I promise you'll find things at school that are more enjoyable than games. You can pause the game and come back to it later. It's not going anywhere." The girl replied, "But you're on your knees, wiping your face in my underwear." Embarrassed, Haruwaki quickly apologized. "What? Sorry, I didn't mean to do that." As he tried to explain, she interrupted, "You don't care about the clothes." She then kicked him and got up from her chair. The short student chimed in, "With that attitude, you'll definitely come back to school." Surprisingly, the girl responded, "Yes, this man has made me think about returning." The short student encouraged her, "Come back. This teacher is really nice and hasn't done anything wrong." Haruwaki, "That's not exactly a compliment." Then he said to the girl, "You can play games when you're older, but you won't have the chance to go back to school once you grow up. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I promise I'll get you the special sailor school uniform, and your black hair will look beautiful in it." The next day, as Haruwaki headed to the classroom, he wondered, will she come or not? I really want her to come. Meanwhile, some yokai teachers were speaking to the school principal, asking, "Principal, who is this human? How did you even hire him? Is it because of his ancient family?" The principal replied, 1,000 years ago, yokai and humans coexisted everywhere. There was an ancient hero and warrior who punished any yokai who did wrong. But now, in today's world, humans are everywhere, and we can't reveal ourselves as we did in the past. This man comes from a family that inherited that power, and Haruwaki, the second son of that family, is here with us. One of the teachers interrupted, "Actually, he has problems dealing with humans and feels weak around them. But to us, he is very strong." He added, "Having him here means we are safe, and it's good for the students as well." At the same time, Sanoko, who was with them, said, "I learned about the new teacher's story. I saw his power when he opened the door for that girl, and I know he's been hiding it." Then Sanoko noticed the book about the girl's school uniform, and curiously asked, "What's this?" Haruwaki quickly replied, "That book was brought to me by mistake, and I accidentally brought it here." The short student reassured him, "Don't worry, we won't tell anyone." Meanwhile, the student Haruwaki had been waiting for finally arrived. As she tried to pass by, she said, "Why are you blocking the way?" Haruwaki smiled and responded, "It's great that you came. The sailor uniform looks nice on you." He opened the door for her, allowing her to enter the classroom. Noticing something unusual, he commented, "Wait, you're wearing pants under that uniform. That's against school rules." She shot back, "What are you talking about?" Sanoko chimed in, teasing, "He really loves the girls' school uniforms." Haruwaki, embarrassed, retorted, "Didn't you say you wouldn't tell anyone? Now the girls probably see me in a negative light. I feel like trash." Sanoko, half-joking, replied, "Yeah, you are trash. Why do you treat me like this?" The teacher sighed and said, "I absorb my energy from people's frustration." At that moment, Heiju approached and said, "Hey teacher, I'm sorry for what I did on the first day. I didn't realize how strong you were." He added, "And did you manage to bring that student back?" Smiling, the teacher replied, "Sweetheart." Then everyone gathered together for the class group photo. After the photo session, Haruwaki walked with Sanoko, saying, "I'm so happy. So many wonderful things happened today." Sanoko responded, "Yes, you did great things and worked hard for them." Haruwaki, surprised, said, "What? I can't believe what I'm hearing. Are you actually thanking me?" Sanoko confirmed, "Yes, you heard me right." Just then, in a burst of excitement, a water hose nearby burst, and both Haruwaki and Sanoko slipped and fell to the ground. The student came over and asked, "Were you doing all this to bring me good luck?" "Well, whenever I wear red, my luck turns terribly bad." She mentioned that it was written in the yokai book. She then added, "And now you're stuck between two unlucky people." Sanoko, standing behind her, asked, "Who are the other two people?" Without warning, Sanoko decided to perform a suplex on Haruwaki, causing him to fall to the ground again. Haruwaki said, "I've become a teacher at the school for mutants, and I communicate with them in Japanese as usual." One day, while he was climbing something, he suddenly heard a cracking sound. He thought to himself, what just broke? A teacher was following him with a camera and told him, "What's broken can be fixed." Later, he went with the teachers to a restaurant, where he invited them for a delicious meal. Haruwaki said, "The food looks really tasty." The teachers responded, "We're happy to be together. We want to get to know each other better since we don't know what happened before." One of them said, "My name is Mano. I'm a teacher in the classroom next to yours." Haruwaki added, "There's also another teacher with us named Hatanaka, who's responsible for attendance issues." Then Haruwaki said, "It's a pleasure to meet you." As they were talking, Hatanaka started preventing Mano from drinking alcohol. Each time Mano poured a glass, Hatanaka took it away. Haruwaki asked, "Why are you doing that?" Hatanaka replied, "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing." He then added, "We have school tomorrow morning, so we need to get a good night's sleep. No one should pass out from drinking." Haruwaki responded, "Isn't tomorrow the sports day?" Hatanaka replied, "Yes. But Mano said it's going to be a very exhausting day." Haruwaki asked, "Why?" Mano answered, "Because we're also taking the students to the doctor for checkups." Mano confirmed, "Remember, today is tough, and every year, one of the students gets sick and ends up in the hospital due to the strain." Haruwaki said, "I'm already tired." The next day, while talking to the students in class, Haruwaki said, "We must listen carefully to what the teachers say." The students began asking questions about themselves, and one asked, "What if I gain weight, or if I'm tired, or if I don't grow taller?" The short student then said, "What if I'm not a mutant?" Haruwaki responded, "I can't help you with that, but I'm sure you're a mutant." Afterward, he left the classroom and found Mr. Hatanaka waiting for him. Hatanaka said, "Haruwaki, I need your help." Haruwaki replied, "Sure, go ahead." Hatanaka said, "I need you for the eye exams. You need to go to that room over there and call this number." Then he shouted, "Call this number and you'll understand." Haruwaki took the paper and rushed toward the room. Hatanaka yelled, "Don't run in the school, walk quickly." Haruwaki replied, Okay, I will." He went there and began overseeing the students' eye exams with the doctor on the phone. The doctor said, "This student's vision is 130. Haruwaki asked, "I don't know if that's a good result for mutants." The student, upset, said, "I dropped half a point from last year." Haruwaki asked him, "Will that half a point affect your life? Will you still be able to live after that?" After the exams, Haruwaki returned to Hatanaka and said, "The eye exams are finished." Suddenly, Hatanaka yelled at him, "You're late. Take the short student and go to the nurse's room quickly." Haruwaki replied, "Got it." Despite Hatanaka's warnings, Haruwaki didn't run but walked quickly to the nurse's room for further checkups. The nurse asked them to enter a small cage for their examination and to ensure their well-being. As soon as they stepped inside, they instantly transformed into small animals. Suddenly, the cage door closed on them, and one of them said, "This cage is enchanted, and you won't be able to get out." A voice from inside said, "Sorry, but we have a doctor from abroad." At that moment, the doctor appeared and told them, "We're just going to give you some shots to take care of your health." When they saw the needles, they started screaming, "No, we don't want this. This is punishment, not treatment." But the doctor disagreed. "Even this animal here will get a shot." He added, "All mutants must get vaccinated." Then, Teacher Hatanaka entered, saying, "Wait, Mano, you're getting a shot too." While they were in the cage, the mutants tried to escape, but they couldn't. Mano said, "Take them, doctor. They're in your hands now." One of the mutants replied, "Fine, Mano, but you still owe me money. Give me my money back." The doctor responded, "Well, I'm busy with surgeries. I can't handle the injections right now." Haruwaki grabbed the doctor to help him give the shots, trying to calm everyone down, saying, "Don't worry, you won't feel a thing." One of the students said, "Okay, teacher, talk to me about something so I don't notice it." Haruwaki replied, "All right, I'll talk to you about," and he began chatting to distract them. As the doctor approached to give the shot, the mutant kept running away, causing the needle to fly and land directly in Haruwaki's head, right in the middle of his brain. Haruwaki screamed loudly, quickly bandaging his head from the injury, and said, "Doctor, I'm human, not a mutant. Am I going to be okay?" The doctor reassured him, "Of course, don't worry. I've tested this on some humans before." Haruwaki asked in shock, "What do you mean?" The doctor replied, "I mean, I've conducted experiments on a human being, and 2 days ago, I created a new, amazing injection. You can try it." But Haruwaki quickly responded, "No, absolutely not." Then he looked at the crying students and said, "All right, we're done." But Mano interrupted, "No, there's one last thing. We still need to measure the students' heights." They moved toward one of the tall mutants, and Mano said, "Mutants of this kind are the ones who built the lakes and mountains." Haruwaki asked, "Do I have to climb him to measure his height?" Mano replied, "Yes, of course. You're setting an example for the students to follow what you do." Haruwaki retorted, "Then why don't you or Hatanaka climb?" Mano said, "No, leave him out of it. He's not capable after the shot." Frustrated, Haruwaki said, "No, I don't want to climb. Let's bet on who's going to do it." Mano challenged him, but Haruwaki lost the bet. As he started climbing, he muttered to himself, "Why did I even bet like that? I'm such an idiot. This happens every time." When he reached the student, he said, "Why do I keep losing these bets?" The student replied, "I don't know. Why do you bet in the first place?" Mano interrupted, "Stop complaining and climb higher." Haruwaki said, "I'm now at the student's ear." The student responded, "Really? Well, be careful." Suddenly, a gust of wind blew over him, shaking his balance and causing him to wobble in the air. At that moment, Haruwaki's school book flew out of his hands and he shouted, "What is this? My book flew away." Suddenly, he let go of the rope he was holding onto and began to fall, realizing in that moment that if he hit the ground, it would be dangerous. He screamed, "I don't want to die like this. I want to die wearing my school uniform." Just then, he saw Sanko in the distance, coming to his rescue. Sanko said to him, "Die? Don't talk about dying right now." Haruwaki replied, "Thank you for saving me." Then he asked, "What are you doing here?" Sanko responded, "I don't like this checkup day, but I do enjoy climbing his head." After they climbed together, Sanko said, "He's 130 meters tall." The student was thrilled and exclaimed, "Did you know? I've surpassed the Statue of Liberty back home." But Mono told Haruwaki, "Come down now. That's enough. I'm going to check on the other students." Haruwaki asked, "How am I supposed to get down now? Why do I have to climb down alone?" Then he looked at Sanko and said, "You can carry me down on your back." Sanko replied, "All right, but you're going to make me die laughing." Haruwaki said, "So if you were my friend now, you could easily help me down." Sanko responded, "No, I have no way of getting down from here." Suddenly, while trying to lower himself on his shoulder, the tall student felt a sneeze coming, and indeed, he sneezed, sending them flying far away. He then said, "I'm sorry, sir. I sneezed suddenly," but no one was there to reply. Surprised, he wondered, "What's going on? Did they get down that quickly?" Meanwhile, Mono came walking with Hatanaka saying, "Thank goodness. The day is finally over." Then the short child, Sanko's friend, approached the teacher and asked, "Where's Sanko?" The short child asked again, "Where did he go?" The other replied, "I don't know." Then Hatanaka asked, "And where's Haruwaki?" Sanko had also found them in the principal's office. Because of the tall student's sneeze, they had been transported there. Sanko said to Haruwaki, "What's happening to me?" Haruwaki asked, "What do you mean?" Sanko replied, "Since you came, I feel tired, and bad things keep happening to me. Stay away from me." Haruwaki responded, "You're the one who transformed, not me. Did you forget?" At that moment, the principal walked in saying, "Be quiet, all of you." Then Haruwaki said, "I'm sorry, principal. I'll pay for the broken glass." The principal replied, "I understand what happened, but the glass is very expensive. Your salary won't cover it." The principal added, "But I'll have you do something else instead of paying for the glass." Haruwaki asked, "What do you mean by something else?" The principal instructed him to take the students and clean the school's swimming pool. The tall student who had caused the accident said, "I'm sorry, it's all because of me." Haruwaki responded, "Don't worry about it, just try to stay tall." While some students didn't want to go, others were excited to swim in the water. Haruwaki asked, "Does anyone know if there's a swimming pool at the school?" They replied, "We used to go to the ocean every year, but we're not going this year because it's gotten too hot." They continued, "Summer came early, and it's caused some strange things to appear in the sea. A group of shapeshifters had also appeared in the ocean, where they lived." Haruwaki asked, "Does that mean there are no jellyfish, honestly?" When they reached the swimming pool, they said, "We've arrived. This is the pool, right?" One of them replied, "Here it is." As soon as they saw the pool, they exclaimed, "What is this? What a mess. This isn't a pool." One of the students said, "This doesn't just need cleaning, it needs to be blown up." Haruwaki responded, "No, the water here is just really dirty. It's stagnant water." Then he added, "No, it's not polluted, but there are unnatural things in it." The short student said, "Yeah, this definitely looks like a graveyard or the underworld." Haruwaki started playing with a stick along with Sanko and said, "At least let's try to clean it." Sanko replied, "If whatever is in here comes out, it will cause destruction to nature." At that moment, Haruwaki mocked and responded, "Nature will recover." Suddenly, a student named Higeta came running with excitement and said, "I'll start cleaning from over there." He ran toward the other side. Sanko warned him, "Be careful, there's water around the pool. You might slip." But before he could finish his sentence, Higeta's feet slipped, and he fell into the pool, starting to disappear. His friends screamed, "Help him! He's drowning!" Another shouted, "It's over! It looks like he's already poisoned! He's dead!" But Sanko calmly said, "No, it's actually just mud. He'll dissolve in the water." Suddenly, Higeta emerged from the water, gasping for air, and said, "That was a really terrible experience." But Higeta emerged with a completely new look, and his behavior had changed too. He said, "Oh my god, I almost died. It's good that I'm still alive." Everyone spoke in unison. "What is this? How did you end up like this?" One of the students asked. "I think everything about him has changed, even his abilities and behavior. He's become a completely different person." Sanko immediately replied, "What is this nonsense? He turned blonde in such a gross way." Then one of his classmates threw Higeta back into the water, saying, "We'll say he died. Got it? And we'll also say he was poisoned and fell into the toxic water." The short student started cleaning the water with a stick, and suddenly a small creature appeared from the water. It tried to pull him in, calling, "Come! Come!" The students noticed that these creatures liked causing trouble for anyone nearby. One of them said, "What's going on? Did you forget our classmate is being dragged right now? We need to do something." Everyone rushed toward Higeta, trying to save him from the creatures. But the creatures were quite strong. One student, in a panic, said, "This is it! I'm done for! I'll die, or I'll turn into a tall, handsome man like the one before me. At that moment, Sanko stepped in and struck the creatures. And with the first blow, the creatures were forced back into the depths of the water. He saved his friend, saying, "Are you okay, mommy?" Higeta responded, "Yes, you're my best friend." He hugged him tightly, crying, "I was going to die, Sanko." Sanko reassured him, saying, "Don't worry. I won't let anything happen to you. I won't let you become a tall, handsome man. I'll keep you just the way you are, because you're perfect like this." At that moment, a monster emerged from the swimming pool and said to them, "Do you think you've defeated us, you pack of dogs?" Sanko retorted, "Who are you mocking? Just remember, you already got beaten up." The monster replied, "Sorry, but we were just trying to protect our boss, who's still here." Suddenly, the water began to stir in a terrifying way, and a giant fish emerged from it, with a human-like face. The large fish started speaking, saying, "How are you, shapeshifters? You're worthless. I am the biggest among you, and you won't succeed in cleaning this pool. This place is sacred to us, and we won't let any of you lay a hand on anything here." At that moment, one of the shapeshifters turned into a cat and said to the fish, "All right then, come here so I can show you what this cat will do to you. I'll show you my strength because your words aren't cutting it." The cat lunged at the fish, but it was too small, and the fish swallowed it whole. Everyone screamed, "No, Tamo! The fish swallowed Tamo!" The fish said to them, "Don't worry, I'll fit everyone inside my stomach." Then it attacked them. Haruaki shouted, "What are we going to do now?" Sanko answered, "She's hungry, right?" He stood in front of the fish with one hand raised. The tall boy transformed into a stronger form and successfully grabbed hold of the fish. Suddenly, the fish cried out, "What is this? I'm in trouble." It then looked at the other fish and said, "I won't be able to do anything like this. We're in a mess." At that moment, the smaller fish said, "All right, just look." The large fish added, "What do you want to do? If you want to eat us or torture us, go ahead. Do as you please." Then it turned to the tall boy and said, "If you want to eat me, go ahead." He replied, "I don't think I'd like your taste." As the short boy climbed toward the fish, he said, "Why don't you go live in an aquarium? You'll get your 3 meals a day, sleep and wake up whenever you want, and no one will bother you. You might even find another fish like you to marry." The large fish looked a bit sad, but after a moment it agreed, saying, "All right, I agree." Haruaki exclaimed, "No, you have no personality at all." Then Haruaki said, "Okay, let's start cleaning the pool." He turned to the tall boy and asked, "Why have you been standing in the pool for so long? Are you okay, or do you feel something?" The tall boy replied, "No, I'm fine." But then he added, "But the water is really hot." Suddenly he slipped and fell, causing a huge mess in the pool. At that point, the teacher returned to the principal, holding a small kiddie pool, asking, "What do you think of this? It's nicer than the big pool." The principal replied, "No, of course not, you fool. I'll have to deduct that from my salary." Haruaki felt down, saying, "So, we won't see any swimming for a whole year." In the end, they decided to take the large fish to its new home, giving it a chance at a happier life. Haruki was sitting with Manu at school when Manu informed him, "I'll have you attend my yoga classes. This will help you gain valuable experience and get to know the students better." Haruki, clearly impressed, asked, "Can I join you?" Manu replied, "I'll talk to the principal and push him to agree, so you can become a better teacher than before." Haruki responded eagerly, "Yes, I want to be a better teacher than before." Just then, the bell rang, and Manu told him, "You should go now. You have a class. Hurry so you're not late." Haruki replied, "All right," and ran off with excitement. Meanwhile, other teachers approached Manu and questioned, "How can you talk to him like that? The principal is angry because of the power he holds." They asked Manu, "Aren't you afraid of him?" Manu replied confidently, "No, why should I be afraid? I know he has power, but I actually want to control him." Later, Haruki attended Manu's class, where Manu announced to the students, "Today, Haruki will be joining us." The students shifted uneasily, unsure about having him in their class. Haruki tried to reassure them, saying, "Bear with me, I'm still a new student." Manu then began the class by instructing, "I want you all to submit last week's homework." Suddenly, Nudo spoke up and told the teacher that Mangini hadn't done his homework, which infuriated Mangini. He snapped, "Why would you say that?" Manu intervened calmly. "It doesn't matter. He'll complete it here after school." Mangini felt a sting from both his teachers' and classmates' remarks. In the row behind them, another student, Higita, muttered to himself that they should just be honest about the homework. He raised his hand and confessed to the teacher that he had done the homework, but forgot to bring it. The teacher replied, "Fine, go get it. Your house is only 15 minutes away from here." Feeling frustrated, Higita left the classroom, thinking he now appeared like a liar, even though he hadn't done the homework either. Manu continued with a new lesson, explaining how yokai individuals in the present day attempt to live normally among humans. Haruki observed Manu's strict teaching style, noting that Manu wasn't the type to joke around. He thought to himself that students would now have to be more responsible for their work. In his mind, he pictured himself pleading with one of the students, imagining the entire school watching. As Manu explained that each yokai transforms into something specific and has unique abilities, Haruki scribbled in his notes and wondered aloud, "I wonder what Sano would transform into. He'd look funny if he turned into a small student like this." Sano, sensing Haruki's stare, turned around and smacked him on the head with a pen. Sano grumbled, "I don't like people standing behind me like that." Manu continued teaching, unperturbed. Haruki raised his hand and asked, "Why are some types of yoka hard to deal with?" Manu replied, "Because they can't control their emotions or their anger, which leads to major problems." Manu continued, "For example, I regain my strength when I drink alcohol, and I become very strong. Do you want to see that?" The students quickly gathered and protested. "No, we don't want that. What happened last year was enough." Suddenly, Haruki spoke up. "I want to see it." The students turned and glared at him angrily, warning, "Be quiet. You don't know anything. Don't say you want to see, or it could cost you your life." At that moment, Manu opened the bottle and took a drink, declaring, "Now I'll show you what my power looks like." All the students were terrified. Manu then struck the board. Haruki and the students stood frozen in fear as Manu displayed his strength. He then said, "Do you see now, troublemakers, how powerful I've become?" Meanwhile, Higita was frantically searching for his printed homework sheet, but couldn't find it. Muttering to himself, he said, "I need to find time to finish it now," as he struggled with his internal conflict. In the classroom, Manu continued drinking. Sano turned to Haruki and explained, "Manu only knows how to use his power or yoka ability when he's drunk. Last year he broke half the school before sobering up at the end of the day." Nudo sighed. "I knew this was going to happen the moment he walked in." During the chaos, Nudo said, "I should go get another teacher." Manu suddenly shouted, "Shut up!" and hit Nudo on the head with a cucumber, saying, "We're in the middle of a class." When Nudo tried to run, Manu chased him to the door, asking, "Where do you think you're going? We're not done with class. Do you want to leave?" Playing with an orange, he suddenly squeezed it into Nudo's eye, the only one he had. Nudo cried out in pain and collapsed, while his friends gathered around him, wondering, "Why is he doing this? This feels like elementary school nonsense." Mangini, watching this, felt a secret satisfaction seeing Nudo in pain since Nudo had accused him earlier. Meanwhile, Manu turned back to Haruki and demanded, "You too! Show us what you've got." Haruki, bewildered, responded, "Show you what? Do you want to know how much I earn?" Manu grabbed Haruki's shirt angrily and said, "Do you think I'm stupid? I'm telling you, show us the power you have." Just then, Sano approached from behind and struck Manu, pushing him away from Haruki. Sano turned to Haruki and urged, "You have to exorcise the evil spirit from him." Haruki, confused, asked, "How am I supposed to do that?" Sano replied, "You have the power, and you can do it." Haruki, still uncertain, said, "Really? I have all that?" He began to recall the moment when he opened the door. Sano pressed, "You still don't know?" Haruki answered, "No, I didn't. I was just selling ordinary things and living my life." Sano responded firmly, "Well, try it and exorcise the demon inside him, because if this keeps going, he'll kill us all." As Haruki stepped forward, the tension in the room intensified. After Manu got up from the ground, Haruki faced him and declared, "Get ready, Manu. I'm going to do this for Nudo and Kasam, the ones you hit." Suddenly, Mr. Hatanka burst into the classroom and demanded, "What's with all the noise?" He then glanced out the window and saw Haruki outside, standing amidst broken glass. Manu, however, was fixated on Haruki and moved towards him, attempting to throw him off the building. Haruki looked down, realizing the height, and thought, "I don't have any power. What should I do now?" Sano then leaned over and whispered, "Do you know that if you exorcise the evil spirit from Manu Zakashi, he'll throw off the pants under his school uniform?" Haruki, visualizing the scene, decided he needed to act. His power finally manifested, and he successfully exorcised the evil spirit possessing Manu. Suddenly, rain began to fall over them, as if cleansing the air. The principal, watching from a distance, remarked with satisfaction, "This is quite beautiful." Just then, Higita burst in and proudly declared, "I told you I finished the homework," only to find everyone gathered around. Sano turned to Haruki and commented, "I didn't expect your power to cleanse the entire school." Haruki, equally surprised, responded, "I hope we can keep this a secret between us." Sano asked, "Why?" Haruki explained, "I don't want anyone in the class to be afraid of me. I want to have a good school year without harming anyone." Suddenly, the plant that Haruki had grown splattered mud on his face and angrily declared, "You don't care about us at all. We need water." The plant then bit Haruki's leg, causing him to scream in pain. "Let me finish what I'm trying to say. I have something really important to tell you." Sano couldn't help but laugh at Haruki's situation. While Higita kept pleading with Nudo to hand over the homework, Nudo firmly refused. Higita, desperate, insisted, "This is the last time, I promise," but Nudo wasn't buying it. "You've said last time 100 times before," he pointed out. Determined, Higita tried again. "I'll do anything you want, whatever you ask." Nudo shook his head. "I'm not into that. That's Sano's territory." Still, after some relentless pressure, Nudo finally gave in. "Fine, but this is seriously the last time. I can't keep doing this," he warned. Adding a bit of advice, Nudo said, "You need to shape up before you end up like our teachers." Just then, the two noticed Haruki standing silently behind them like a ghost. Startled, they panicked and took off running. Higita turned back, shouting, "Why do you sneak up on people like it's a horror movie? Muto asked, still catching his breath. "What are you doing here, Haruki?" Haruki calmly replied, "I'm now in charge of monitoring and disciplining students. Think of me as Mr. Hatanka's right-hand man, learning more about you all." At that moment, Sano and his short friend came running in. Muto pointed at them, smirking. "Hey Sano, looks like you've got a new boss to deal with since you're breaking the rules with that yellow hair." Haruki approached Sano, saying, "Hold on. I'm in charge of discipline now." He then started inspecting Sano's hair from every angle. With a quick move, Sano grabbed Haruki by the face, lifted him off the ground, and revealed that his hair was actually black underneath. Sano then casually tossed Haruki aside. Continuing the conversation, Sano asked, "Do I look bad or something?" Haruki, a bit dazed, replied, "No, not at all. It suits you." Just then, Mr. Hatanka stormed in, furious, and demanded, "What nonsense are you spouting?" He added, "You can't be a discipline teacher, Haruki." Feeling embarrassed, Haruki quickly apologized. From a distance, Sakashi approached and asked, "What's going on here?" Haruki, still trying to regain his composure, replied, "Oh, you're early today." Sakashi responded casually, "I was just playing around." Sakashi hadn't slept the night before, and when she arrived at school, she was still wearing pants underneath her school uniform. Haruki rushed towards her and said, "You can't just keep wearing those pants like this." But Sakashi reacted instantly, kicking him in the face as he approached. She declared, "I defeated all the monsters in the game, and you're the last one left." Muto, trying to calm things down, remarked, "You're right, Sakashi, but he's our teacher." Haruki, still determined, said, "I won't let you do that. I'm going to cut those pants off." Just as he was about to move closer, a police officer who happened to be nearby intervened. The officer took Sakashi with him, saying they needed to have a little chat at the station. Meanwhile, Sakashi and Higita were carrying their video games around when Mr. Hatanka saw them. Without hesitation, he confiscated the games, leaving them feeling dejected. At that moment, Manu approached Hatanka, handing him a stack of exam papers and saying, "Here you go. I finished the paperwork." Hatanka, unimpressed, replied, "All the other teachers turned in theirs a week ago." While wandering through the school, Higita and Sakashi overheard the teachers discussing a plan to lock up all of the students' games in a safe for a week after the upcoming exams. Manu warned them, "Be cautious. One student tried to steal them before, but he won't succeed this time." Entering the classroom, Higita and Sakashi informed their classmates of what had happened. Two siblings chimed in, saying, "Hatanka took our games too." The four of them agreed on a plan to retrieve their games that night. Under the cover of darkness, they made their way to the safe where the games were being kept. The school looked eerie at night, heightening the tension. At one point, Higita, feeling uneasy, whispered to his friends that he saw a monster lurking on top of the cabinet. They gathered around cautiously, ready to strike the monster, only to find out that it was Haruki hiding behind the cabinet. He had mistaken them for intruders. Haruki attempted to scare them off, but things didn't go as he planned. Eventually, he agreed to return their games, saying, "All right, I'll give them back to you, but just this once." However, Haruki wasn't about to let them off the hook easily. He had prepared a trap, and the students fell right into it. Just then, Hatanka entered the room and said, "Well done, watchdog. Haruki." Haruki, a bit offended, responded, "Excuse me?" Hatanka continued, "I thought you were just going to let them take their stuff back." Manu chimed in, "We're very cautious." Meanwhile, Sano and Miami were in their room, with Miami studying hard to improve her grades. At the same time, Haruki faced the four students, announcing it was time for their discipline. But suddenly the twins started to regain control over their powers, and the cage that held them could no longer restrain them. In a flash, they broke free and darted off in different directions. Manu shouted, "Let's catch them!" And everyone started running to either chase or escape. The students hid behind a large wooden cabinet, believing they were safe. But Manu unexpectedly appeared from the other side, smashing through the cabinet and approaching them, taunting, "Did you really think you could get away from me?" One of the twins used their lightning power against Manu, but the electricity veered off and hit Haruki instead. Engulfed in flames, Haruki sprinted toward the fire alarm, desperately trying to put himself out. The other twin, realizing the mistake, quickly used their wind powers to blow out the flames. It finally dawned on everyone that the students' goal had been to retrieve their confiscated games, while the teachers were mistakenly convinced that they were trying to steal exam questions. Hatanka, now calmer, asked the students, "Why didn't you just ask for the games? I would have given them to you." Haruki, still catching his breath, remarked, "At least the firefighters haven't shown up yet." Hatanka corrected him. "When the alarm goes off, they're called automatically." As he turned to glance out the window, he spotted the firefighters arriving below. Panic set in, and everyone scrambled to find a hiding place. As Sano and Yuto wandered through the hall, they spotted the group frantically hiding, and couldn't resist shouting to the firefighters, "Hey, the ones who triggered the alarm are right here." And once again, chaos ensued, with everyone taking off in a mad dash. The students were thrilled to learn that their teacher, Haruki, would be featured in an interview on a TV channel. With a hint of shyness, Haruki explained that he'd been invited for a personal interview because he was the first human teacher at Yoka School. Sakashi eagerly asked about the channel, and Haruki mentioned it was for a program called biography. However, some students had their doubts. They teased that he might not be ready, warning him that the interview might not go as smoothly as he hoped. Sano bluntly added that Haruki would probably embarrass himself, suggesting he had little interest outside of school uniforms and labeling him a coward who might even lose his job over it. Haruki took Sano's words to heart and began questioning whether he should go through with it. But seeing his uncertainty, the other students quickly rallied around him, offering their support and encouragement. Their enthusiasm soon lifted Haruki's spirits, and he started feeling genuinely excited about the opportunity. Not long after, their other teacher, Hatanka, popped in to remind Haruki to avoid any new damage to the walls during class. Shortly afterward, Agiha, the show's director, arrived, introducing herself, her assistant, and the rest of the crew. Haruki felt a bit intimidated by her assistant, who was impressively large. Agiha outlined the day's plan, explaining that after the interview, they would explore the school's various activities. Haruki, feeling more confident, agreed eagerly. The students, excited by the idea of being on TV, prepared themselves with enthusiasm, hopeful that they too might make it into the footage, when Haruki began his lesson. As Haruki opened his book, he realized, to his alarm, that he had accidentally grabbed his personal book about school uniforms instead of the class textbook. Panicking, he decided to slip out unnoticed, making a small hole in the wall to discreetly request the correct book from the next classroom. Teacher Hatanka noticed his unusual borrowing, raising a questioning eyebrow. After the first segment of filming concluded, it was clear it hadn't gone as smoothly as planned. Agiha then suggested they move to the second segment. Haruki agreed and invited Hatanka to join, as this part involved practicing scare tactics in public places. Hatanka instructed the students to focus on instilling fear and panic, urging them to be as frightening as possible. Haruki eagerly promised to give it his all, but Hatanka quickly clarified that Haruki wasn't meant to scare anyone. He was only there to observe. Agiha was thoroughly impressed, noting she'd never seen a teacher quite like Haruki, which she felt would add a distinctive angle to her show. Haruki, still slightly embarrassed, asked Hatanka how they would reach the city, given the distance. He suggested traveling by sea, but Hatanka pointed out that the trip would take about 10 hours. Instead, he explained that the school principal had used his magic to create a room that, once entered, would instantly transport them to the city. Frustrated, Haruki wondered aloud why he hadn't known about this room earlier. Hatanka replied with a grin, saying it was probably because Haruki would have tried to escape on his first day. Haruki conceded, admitting he likely would have, and then asked the crew to edit this moment out. Agiha laughed, reassuring him that anything unnecessary would be cut. Hatanka then announced to the students that today would be a practical training day, but with one specific rule. No one was allowed to practice their scare tactics on Haruki. He asked if anyone knew the reason, and one of the shorter students quickly quipped, because he doesn't have any friends. Offended, Haruki shot back in denial, only for another student, Higeta, to chime in, calling him foolish. Sakashi added that people couldn't even stand looking at him, while Sano speculated that Haruki's bad luck might be contagious. Haruki protested, hurt by their teasing, until Otaga finally provided the correct answer, saying, because he doesn't have anyone to warn him about what's going to happen to him. Hatanka praised Otaga, emphasizing the importance of looking out for one another. He then instructed everyone to avoid scaring children, the elderly, pregnant women, or anyone with health issues. Selecting Otaga and Nudo as the first pair to start, Hatanka encouraged them, though they appeared a bit nervous. Trying to boost their spirits, Haruki attempted a scare demonstration, but it only made them more uneasy, and they quickly asked him to stop. Moving on, Nudo and Otaga proceeded to practice on two boys, successfully scaring them away. Pleased with Nudo and Otaga's successful scare attempt, Hatanka called for the next pair, Mangini and Higeta. However, when they attempted to frighten an elderly woman, they got more than they bargained for. The woman, far braver than they expected, threw salt into Higeta's eyes, claiming to be a spirit banisher, and chased them off with weapons, sending the two students fleeing. When they returned to Hatanka, they sheepishly admitted they had left her tied to a tree in their panic. Trying to console Mangini, Nudo encouraged him not to be discouraged, assuring him that he'd succeed next time. Mangini, still irritated, told Nudo to mind his own business. Next, Exami and the short student tried their luck at scare training but were also unsuccessful. Hatanka then announced that it was Sano's turn and instructed him to take Haruki along. Haruki eagerly accepted, thrilled at the chance, while Sano protested, questioning why Haruki had to tag along. Hatanka replied mysteriously, saying Haruki would be there, just in case. As they set off, Haruki asked Sano why he never used Yoka magic. Sano admitted that he struggled to control it, needing a genuine intent to activate it. He recalled a middle school incident where his powers had spiraled out of control. Haruki, encouraged, promised to support him, and even offered his energy to boost Sano's magic if necessary. Sano, unimpressed, suggested Haruki first work on managing his own energy before helping others. During their exercise, Sano spotted a man walking his dog and cut the leash, sending the dog racing after Haruki. Haruki fled, only to trip and crash into a bike, where the dog bit him and wouldn't let go. As Haruki stumbled near a woman, his disheveled appearance frightened her, and she screamed. Hatanka arrived to check on Haruki, asking if he was alright. Covered in bruises, Haruki dryly suggested that if Hatanka thought he looked fine, he might need new glasses. Sano proudly claimed he'd completed the scare training, but Haruki snapped, "I'm the one who scared people, not you." Hatanka then asked Sano to scare people without causing harm. Sano responded by magically stripping the students in the hallway of their clothes to frighten them, insisting no one was hurt. Outraged, the students shouted that he had indeed hurt their pride and dignity. Agiha then approached Haruki, asking if they could begin filming his daily routine. Haruki requested that any unusable footage be removed. Meanwhile, the students secretly plotted to sabotage his image. As Haruki spoke about his typical day, the students interrupted in costume, dressed like bandits, and bombarding him with absurd questions that left him flustered and embarrassed. Frustrated, Haruki tried to correct their behavior, saying it was inappropriate. Sano urged him to be firmer, advising him to stop being so polite with unruly students. Taking Sano's advice, Haruki, in a stern tone, warned that if they didn't obey, they'd face a hell of their own making. Shocked by his newfound firmness, the students quickly apologized. Agiha, impressed, remarked that Haruki's words had miraculously tamed the troublesome students. Just then, the short student interrupted to tell Haruki that one of the animals he cared for had gone missing. Worried, Haruki asked where it might have gone, but before anyone could answer, he spotted the missing animal falling from a high ledge in the schoolyard. Without hesitation, he leaped after it, risking his life. The students, along with Agiha's assistant, rushed to help, managing to save both Haruki and the animal, narrowly avoiding disaster. Grateful for the assistant's help, the students expressed their thanks, realizing the weight of the day's events. Sano, still shaken by the close call, turned to Haruki and muttered, "You're going to be the death of me." Haruki, with a small smile, simply replied, "Thank you." The following day, Haruki eagerly watched his interview on the program and asked the students for their opinions. To his surprise, their reactions were less enthusiastic than he'd hoped. Nevertheless, he confidently shared that the reviews of the episode had been very positive. Just then, his phone rang, and he saw it was his mother calling. "Hello, Mom. It's been a while since we last talked," he greeted her warmly. With a knowing tone, his mother replied, "I see now why you needed those protective charms for working at yoga school. But in return, I have a request for you." Curious, Haruki assured her he'd do anything she asked, and she asked if he could come home for a festival at the end of the week. Overhearing his conversation, the students quickly started whispering and planning ways to join Haruki for the festival. Hiroaki went to his mother's house as she had requested. On his way there, his students caught up to him, and Sano informed him that they were en route. Hiroaki quickly urged them to keep his identity and family connections a secret. Sano agreed, suggesting that they visit some tourist attractions first to buy him some time, but warned Hiroaki to steer clear of these spots to avoid being seen. Hiroaki thanked Sano and teased him, recalling how Sano used to reprimand him constantly. When Hiroaki joked around further, Sano playfully threatened to come over and skin his face if he didn't take it back. Hiroaki clarified that he was only kidding. When the students arrived at the train station, Hijita urged Sano to hurry, but they noticed two young men harassing Zakashi, insisting she go with them. Zakashi rejected their advances, telling them to leave her alone. She called out to Hijita for help, but he laughed, joking that she was already in trouble with the boys. Frustrated, Zakashi demanded he stop joking and intervene. Sano instructed Hijita to handle the situation. Just then, another young man appeared, resembling Hiroaki, and stepped in to defend Zakashi. He even teased the two men, telling them to find someone else to bother. The students were stunned by the uncanny resemblance, wondering if he was their teacher. A shorter student decided to test him by attacking, convinced this wasn't Hiroaki due to his casual attire. The doppelganger fell, confused, asking what was happening. Just then, Hiroaki arrived, running towards Sano and hugging him, apologizing for their previous banter. He recognized the look-alike as his brother, Kamen, who was equally surprised to see Hiroaki with students in tow. They all piled into a car to head home. Sano commented that Hiroaki had never mentioned having a twin. Hiroaki then introduced Kamen as his brother. The short student questioned Kamen's stare, but Zakashi scolded him, reminding him he had just hit Kamen. Hiroaki assured everyone his mother was aware of the visit, and that they needn't worry, as he had already prepared the house for them. As they approached the house, a man rushed out excitedly, exclaiming at Hiroaki's return. Hiroaki playfully nudged him, joking that he was a ghost they shouldn't fear. A young girl also emerged, noticing Hiroaki's students. Hiroaki asked her for a drink, adding that he hadn't revealed to his students that his home was a shrine, and asked her to keep it a secret. The girl welcomed everyone inside. Sano pointed out that they were leaving someone lying on the ground, but the girl reassured them that he was just a ghost who had been with them for a long time. Inside, Hiroaki's mother offered drinks and expressed her happiness at seeing Hiroaki with people beyond his family. The short student, curious, asked her what Hiroaki had been like growing up. She shared a funny memory of his first steps when he grabbed some women's beach clothes that had blown over and began toddling toward them to return them. Hijita found the story amusing, surprised by how funny the memory was. As Hiroaki's father attempted to join them, his mother playfully blocked his way, turning to ask the students about Hiroaki's behavior and whether he was good with them. The students shared lighthearted stories from their interactions, reassuring her that they enjoyed their time together. Just then, Kamen entered, mentioning a program he was watching to divert his mother's attention. He then surprised everyone by asking the students to leave, suggesting that they didn't belong in Hiroaki's world. Embarrassed, Hiroaki confronted Kaman, protesting his treatment of his friends. Kaman firmly closed the door, pulling Hiroaki aside. Sano mentioned he had bought a gift for Kaman and wanted to give it to him. Overhearing, Hiroaki reopened the door, calling Kaman back. But as soon as he stepped out, Sano shut the door, determined to speak with Kamen himself. Hiroaki voiced his frustration, explaining that Kamen had no reason to be so distant and overprotective. Kamen, defensive, explained that he was just worried for Hiroaki and thought it best if he kept his distance from the school and its crowd. In a twist, Hijita entered through the door, muddy from head to toe, startling Kamen so much that he fainted. They hurried to bring him inside, where Hiroaki's mother apologized for Kamen's behavior, explaining that he had always been protective of Hiroaki. Hiroaki remembered how, as children, Kamen would go to great lengths to protect him, keeping people away if he sensed any threat. The next day, Hiroaki's spirits seemed low. His mother asked the students to help set up for the upcoming festival, where they arrived to find rows of stalls. Hiroaki pointed out some shooting games, but noted the prizes didn't look worth the effort. Despite this, he joined in, taking aim and hitting a few targets. The short student jokingly asked Sano for creative ideas to win the games, and Sano suggested using Hiroaki as their new target. Hijita reassured Hiroaki, saying he'd only throw mud at him so he wouldn't feel a thing. Zakashi, aiming her shot playfully at Hiroaki, called out for him to be cautious, though her warning came a bit too late. Hiroaki, shaking his head, reminded them that they were surrounded by regular people and that it was hardly the place for real weapons, no matter how lively the festival was. Meanwhile, Kamen sat with Hiroaki and Sano, offering to order some food. When Sano requested several items, Kamen looked at him in disbelief, surprised by his appetite. Kamen sighed, joking that if he had Hiroaki's ability to repel spirits, he would have driven them all away by now. Curious, Sano asked why Kamen didn't share this power with his brother. Kamen explained that Hiroaki's gift was inherited, though not passed down to all family members, and that it had weakened over generations. Sano pondered how none of his friends had experienced anything unusual at the festival, then inquired further about Hiroaki's abilities. Kamen shared that Hiroaki's power was exceptional, and its true potential had emerged due to a past incident. Their father had accidentally opened a door containing a yokai, a spirit that sought to capture souls. Cornered by the spirit, Kamen had been moments from danger when Hiroaki, sensing trouble, arrived and unknowingly unleashed his latent power to dispel the yokai, saving his brother. That day, Kamen had been astonished by Hiroaki's strength. He explained to Sano that Hiroaki now relied on a blue bead to help regulate his powers, as they were immense but difficult to control. Despite his brother's potential, Kamen remained protective, wanting Hiroaki to stay away from the school and avoid potential threats. Sano reassured Kamen that he would protect Hiroaki, adding that while Hiroaki's powers were formidable, they weren't always useful against every spirit they faced. He promised to handle anything that might arise and to keep Hiroaki safe. Kamen, feeling comforted, agreed to trust Sano, but insisted that Hiroaki be trusted first and encouraged in his role as a teacher. Overhearing this, Hiroaki felt touched by their conversation and rushed to hug Sano, tackling him into a nearby play pool. Overcome with emotion, Hiroaki vowed to work hard to become a great teacher. Sano, playfully scolding him, held him in the pool and splashed him with water, giving him a light zap as they laughed. Later, they headed to the train station, where Hiroaki's mother bid farewell to her son and his friends. Before they boarded, Kamen approached Sano, asking him to take good care of Hiroaki. As the group was called to board, they hurried onto the train. Kamen chased after them, trying to shout something important, but the doors closed just before he could reach them, leaving his message unheard. Hiroaki, however, sensed Kamen's well wishes, feeling overjoyed as the train pulled away. Little did they know, Kamen had been trying to warn them that they were heading in the wrong direction, away from their city. The young student stood on a rapidly moving rock with a human face, speeding through the school grounds. Behind him, Hiraki and two teachers ran after the rock. Hiraki managed to grab hold of it, but couldn't stop its momentum. resulting in a massive crash into one of the classrooms. Teacher Manu arrived, asking about the loud noise and what was going on. Observing the situation, he mentioned that while he couldn't discipline others, they shouldn't engage in such antics at school. Hiraki, lying on his back, jokingly asked if he looked like he was in the best shape. Later, Hiraki, Sano, and another teacher named Hora walked out together, with Hora expressing concerns about the upcoming sports day. Sano commented that it would be a very challenging day, doubting it would go smoothly. Hiraki asked Hora what he thought the results might be, to which Hora humorously replied that he could imagine Hiraki giving a lesson naked as a penalty. Sano agreed, declaring that would be a fitting punishment. The scene shifted to the schoolyard, where the principal announced the sports day, adding that the losing class would disappear. The students looked anxious until the principal clarified, saying the losing class's teacher wouldn't receive their salary. The teachers were shocked, and Hiraki protested the decision. The principal replied that if Hiraki objected, he'd have to teach for a full day without clothes. Embarrassed, Hiraki reconsidered and asked the principal for mercy, feeling he had gotten himself into a tough spot. Manu reassured Hiraki, telling him not to worry, and that he would only need to collect and review the papers. Hiraki, realizing what needed to be done, declared he would lead the treasure hunt, starting with his own students. Manu asked who would be participating from his class, to which Hiraki replied that he had Zakashi, the short student, and Higita, promising to give them his full support. The race began with the short student from Hiraki's class starting first. As soon as it started, the short student transformed into a large, athletic figure, quickly overtaking the others and grabbing the first paper. He returned to his usual form, read the paper, transformed again, and rushed back to his friends, startling them with his appearance as they scattered. Sano caught him, and the short student explained that the paper read, "Best Friend," and for him, that was Sano. He handed the paper to Zakashi, who then took off running. Zakashi entered the race alongside a fast student from another class. Despite the competition, she outpaced her and reached the area where the next set of papers was located. She found a paper that read, "Sacred Sword of the Volcano." Fired up, Zakashi transformed into a blazing flame, thrilled by the challenge, and dashed off, with everyone amazed as she headed straight toward a volcano to retrieve the sword. Hiraki anxiously wondered aloud if Zakashi would be alright. Manu spoke with Hiraki, reminding him to collect the papers from the students who had participated in the race. He approached the short student and asked him what was written on his paper. The student replied, "Best Friend," and explained that's why he chose Sano. The short student then asked if he could keep the paper, wanting to hold on to it as a memory. Manu agreed, which made the student very happy, and he thanked him repeatedly. Shortly after, another student came to Hiraki, claiming he had lost his paper and had thrown it away, which ended up landing on the short student. Annoyed, the short student complained about people throwing trash at him, deciding to keep it until he could dispose of it properly. Meanwhile, Higita was waiting for Zakashi to hand him the baton so he could continue the race. When she returned holding the sacred sword, he asked in surprise where she had gotten it. Zakashi told him it was hers from home and that it could even be sold if needed. She urged him to run quickly to avoid delays that could affect the team's chances, warning that he'd be the first to suffer if they lost because of her sword. As Higita ran, he thought to himself that this sword wasn't ordinary, it was crafted by demons. Zakashi then handed her paper to Hiraki, and Higita reached the checkpoint, feeling pressured as he saw the other racers struggling. He worried that his paper might read, "Your secret love," but was shocked to see it instead said, "Your secret dislike in class." Higita froze in place, uncertain how to proceed as his friends shouted for him to move. Higita didn't want to offend anyone in his class, so he pondered his options. He thought about naming one of the girls, but worried they would all hold a grudge and avoid him. He considered Sano and the short student, but quickly dismissed the idea, as he cared about them too much. He thought about Nudo and other friends, but ruled them out as well. Then he thought of Zakashi, reasoning that she was close to him and might understand his situation, plus she didn't care much about such things. However, she was also close to his family, and he feared she might tell his mother, which would lead to punishment at home. The short student, noticing his hesitation, encouraged him with a wave and showed him a paper in his hand. Higita ran over, asking desperately if he could have the paper and pleaded with him. The short student told him it was just trash and handed it over. Higita took the paper with immense relief and excitement, then asked the short student where he could find Sano. The short student told Higita that Sano was in the bathroom. Higita hurried over, grabbed Sano, and ran with him, which spurred on cheers and encouragement from the students and Hiraki. Higita's sprint allowed him to overtake everyone, reaching first place with Sano, bringing immense joy to his team, with Hiraki joining in the celebration and even giving Higita a big hug out of happiness. After the victory, Sano asked Higita to read the paper and confirm if what he had done was right. Higita encouraged him to go ahead and read it. When Sano opened the paper, everyone was shocked by its contents. Higita, thinking it would say "best friend," was surprised to see it actually said "secret crush." Trying to copy the short student's style, he ended up embarrassing Sano. Hiraki brushed it off, saying what mattered was that they won. But Sano, embarrassed and annoyed, punched him. Hijita apologized, telling Sano not to worry since he had also been embarrassed. Sano replied, "Hijita, let's just stay friends," which left Hijita feeling both angry and foolish. They then moved to the javelin throwing event. Haraki asked Manu if they were actually going to throw the javelins. Manu warned that if Haraki didn't stop rebelling, a small javelin might just hit him. The results were announced, declaring Class 1 as the first place winner, causing Haraki to tear up. Manu wiped his tears, reminding him that he had warned him about this outcome. Haraki replied that he should have been alerted sooner. Two students from Haraki's class approached, presenting him with a strategy they'd devised for the upcoming cavalry competition, and asked him to review it. Excited, Haraki read through it, discussing the details with them, but soon noticed Manu looking at the plan. He told Manu he couldn't see it since he wasn't part of their team. Manu laughed, saying it was easy to guess their strategies, but he would focus on his own team. He left a javelin hovering in his place as he went to meet Tahaki. Tahaki commented on Manu's good mood, to which Manu replied that the sports day had indeed become quite fun. The students prepared for the second stage of the challenges, with Haraki's second class stepping up to participate. They executed the strategy they had shown Haraki earlier, and advanced quickly. However, this swift movement led to the short student falling off Sano's shoulders, causing the two to collide. This made the rest of Haraki's team anxious, especially since they couldn't use Yoka magic, which lowered their morale. One of the team members even suggested retreating, but their leader remembered Haraki's words about not running away and drawing the enemy in until the last moment. Following this advice, they implemented the plan and managed to defeat the opposing team. Soon after, other teams tried to surround them from all sides. Hijita, however, provided reinforcements by using his earth magic, while Maeda attempted to outmaneuver their opponents with his speed. Yet, Hijita began feeling dizzy due to the fast pace and spins. As the opponents closed in, the team used their magic effectively and continued their offensive, performing admirably in the battle. After Haraki's pep talk boosted the team's confidence, they felt ready to secure victory against their opponents. However, an unexpected turn of events disrupted their plans. Maeda instructed Hijita to throw mud balls at the opponents, but Hijita, overwhelmed and nervous, refused. His face turned pale, and in a sudden twist, he vomited on everyone around him. This mishap not only cost them the battle, but also left Hijita exhausted from dizziness, and caused Maeda to collapse on the ground, unable to get up. The team was ultimately disqualified from the competition. Haraki, visibly frustrated and angry, shared his disappointment with Mano and Hataki. As the three discussed the outcome, Hataki noted that two teams remained, one led by Daidare, known for their extremely slow movements, and another by Kodan, who avoided combat entirely. Mano, stepping closer to Hataki, remarked that the competition would end in just a few minutes. Hataki replied with a grin, predicting that the third-year team would take the final spot in the competition. Their laughter was cut short when the school director appeared behind them, overhearing their conversation. He informed them that they didn't know the whole story. There was still a team from the third year they hadn't accounted for. At that moment, Zakshi emerged, carrying a trove of loot. Both Haraki and Hataki were stunned. Haraki, now relieved, muttered Zakshi's name in disbelief. Hataki, still puzzled, admitted he thought she had been eaten by Oda. Haraki clarified that Zakshi possessed Yoka magic, allowing her to remain invisible to everyone. During the chaos caused by Ota's rampage, she and her team had disappeared from view, while everyone else focused on other battles. In that time, Zakshi had quietly gathered treasures unnoticed. Haraki asked with a smile what they thought of her performance, clearly proud of the surprise turn of events. The school director, watching Zakshi's success, felt satisfied. He reflected on how Zakshi had not only mastered her Yoka magic, but had also earned the trust and cooperation of her teammates. The director congratulated himself for recognizing her potential. As Haraki and Sano reviewed the standings, Sano noted that their team had secured third place in the night's race. Haraki attributed their position entirely to Zakshi's remarkable efforts. However, Sano reminded him that the final race would determine everything. If they failed to win, they would finish in last place. Haraki said not to worry. Hataki approached Haraki and asked if he had brought the item he was supposed to fetch from the gym. Haraki, realizing he had forgotten, shouted and rushed off to get it. Hataki also asked Sano to accompany Haraki and help him. Haraki and Sano arrived at the gym. Haraki apologized to Sano for the trouble, but Sano told him to finish what he was doing and come down. Nervously, Haraki asked if Sano was going to hit him when he came down. Sano confirmed it, saying he wanted Haraki to come down so he could hit him. Scared, Haraki said he didn't deserve to be punished. Sano reminded him that they needed to prepare for the final stage of the competition. Haraki reassured him, saying that Sano was the key player for the final round. Sano, however, doubted his contribution so far and expressed confusion about why Haraki still trusted him. Haraki remained confident, but admitted that trust in Sano was difficult. Sano jokingly tried to sell Haraki a bowl for 500, promising it would bring happiness. Haraki dismissed the idea, accusing Sano of trying to trick him with unethical sales tactics. He said he wouldn't pay that amount without testing it first. Sano agreed, saying they should always be cautious with trades. As they talked, a student accidentally bumped into the ladder Haraki was standing on, causing him to fall. During the fall, Haraki collided with a stack of wooden planks, which toppled over. Sano quickly grabbed Haraki's leg to pull him away from the falling planks, but there were too many, and Sano himself stumbled. Hatake arrived, frustrated by the delay, and noticed the shaking ground and falling debris. When he entered, he saw Sano trapped under the planks and Haraki frozen in fear, unable to do anything. Rushing to Sano, Hatake transformed his hand into a blade and began cutting through the planks. He asked Haraki for help, but Haraki was paralyzed and crying. Hatake told Haraki this wasn't the time for tears. Suddenly, Haraki sprang into action, lifting the planks and throwing them aside. He then carried Sano in his arms and ran to first aid. The doctor examined Sano and determined that he had a sprained ankle that would heal within a week. However, he strictly advised Sano not to participate in the final round, but allowed him to spectate. Sano turned to Donito and told him not to do anything foolish in the coming days. The doctor asked about the next competition. Donito explained that it was an obstacle race involving a single yokai, with Sano as the intended main participant. The doctor offered to perform a quick surgery to heal Sano immediately, holding an injection in his hand. Before the doctor could proceed, Haraki interjected, saying he had another solution. The final race began, and Tomao transformed into a cat to prepare for the event. Alongside the competitors, a mix of animals like cats and mice, Tomao sprinted forward in his cat form, with the first obstacle being a wooden climb. However, he felt unusually relaxed as the wood was coated with a substance that made cats feel sleepy. Sano shouted from the sidelines, reminding Tomao that the wood was the same one that had injured his foot earlier. Jolted awake, Tomao revealed his sharp claws and shredded the wood into large pieces before continuing the race. The competitors advanced to the next stage, but many became distracted by various temptations placed along the way. Tomao, however, resisted his instincts and dashed through the field at top speed, avoiding distractions. He successfully handed off the sash to the next runner, a non-organic yokai, while the other competitors remained stuck in their personal traps. The yokai runner continued through the course, skillfully dodging ground traps. Alongside another competitor, he reached the wind barriers. The wind bearers attempted to disrupt them, successfully slowing them down. However, the yokai used a chemical explosive, resembling a bomb, to counteract the winds. The explosion forced the wind bearers to retreat, though it cost him 1 point. Despite this, the explosion cleared the path for everyone, allowing the opponents to surge ahead. Undeterred, the yokai pressed on and handed the sash to Haraki, who had stepped in for Sano. As Haraki sprinted, he berated himself, blaming his own carelessness for Sano's injury. Determined to make amends, he overtook several competitors and reached the high jump box. However, this obstacle posed a significant challenge for Haraki as a human. Unlike his yokai competitors, the team watching from the sidelines began to lose hope, believing the race was over. Hijita asked what they should do since Haraki clearly couldn't complete the jump. Sano revealed a final option. Haraki had latent yokai powers that could help him succeed. However, activating them was risky and possibly dangerous. Tomao volunteered to assist, despite his usual disdain for Haraki, recalling how Haraki had once helped him with his schoolwork. The rest of the team joined in to support Haraki, though Sano remained behind due to his injured foot. The school principal appeared beside Sano and asked if he intended to let Haraki use his powers. Sano admitted he wasn't sure and suggested they watch to see what would happen. Meanwhile, other teachers arrived to observe as well. Haraki struggled with the jump, repeatedly telling himself how difficult it was but refusing to give up. Just as he was about to lose hope, his classmates appeared, wearing his favorite school uniforms to cheer him on. The audience erupted in laughter, mocking them for their inappropriate attire during a sports event. Despite this, the cheering boosted Haraki's morale. Drawing strength from their support, Haraki sprinted forward, leaped, and touched the top of the box with his hand before landing back on the ground. The crowd, including students, teachers, and the principal, were stunned by his feat. Haraki continued the race, clearing the remaining obstacles, including swimming, running across stones, and jumping over fire. He closed the gap between himself and the lead runner, ultimately overtaking them to win the race and secure victory for his team. Overjoyed, Haraki celebrated with his teammates, taking photos and sharing his happiness with the crowd. However, Sano interrupted the celebrations, delivering a punch to Haraki's face that left him bleeding. Shocked, Haraki asked why he had been hit, but Sano didn't reply, Instead, a shorter student ran up to Haraki, hugging him and congratulating him for securing first place, while noting that the other competitors were still finishing the course. Sano acknowledged their first-place victory, but reminded Haraki that it wasn't like other races, emphasizing the need to review the results. Back at school, Haraki returned to teaching, wearing an unusual and revealing outfit as punishment from the principal for his antics during the race. Haraki lamented his predicament, saying, "So this is how it ends, with these clothes." Muto teased him, calling him a complete pervert, to which Higita added that the principal had gathered all the misfits into their class. Sano joked, asking why Haraki's punishment was so humiliating when another teacher had merely had a piece of cheese deducted from his salary as punishment. Haraki explained that many parents had filed complaints about his behavior, and he had to accept the punishment to avoid a salary deduction. Muto continued teasing him, saying he looked more perverted than ever. Frustrated, Haraki asked Muto to stop calling him a pervert and instead refer to him as charming, but Muto angrily refused. Higita approached Haraki, suggesting they celebrate their victory with some drinks. Hesitant, Haraki asked if he would have to pay for everyone. Higita confirmed, saying it was customary for the teacher to treat their students on such occasions. As they left the classroom, Haraki sighed, accepting that while he avoided losing his salary to the principal, he was about to spend a significant portion on his students. Sano and the short student toppled to the ground, overwhelmed by the mountain of gifts given for Sano's birthday. Meanwhile, Momo stood at a distance watching Sano eagerly unwrap his presents. As she observed, Haraki approached her from behind, asking about her actions. Startled, Momo bolted away, leaving Haraki puzzled and remarking that she made him feel like a threat. Suddenly, Haraki was ambushed and drugged by an unknown figure, collapsing to the floor. In Haraki's classroom, Exami entered late, hurriedly explaining that he had rushed to make it before the lesson started. The short student teased him, suggesting he had overslept. Exami denied it, claiming he had been rescuing a cat from thieves. As the class settled, Haraki stormed in angrily, demanding everyone take their seats. Exami sarcastically questioned if Haraki was in a bad mood, while the short student asked what brought Amaki to their classroom. Sano promptly dragged Amaki outside by his tie, calling Higita and Zakshi to join them. Outside, Sano questioned why Amaki had traveled such a long way to visit. The short student mockingly suggested Amaki was overly concerned about his brother Haraki. Higita asked Amaki about Haraki's whereabouts, and Amaki admitted he had locked Haraki in the restroom, leaving a school uniform behind. In the restroom, Haraki struggled with his restraints, shouting for help. Spotting the uniform beside him, he felt oddly pleased since he liked the outfit. Sano dismissed concerns about Haraki's situation, believing he would manage with the uniform. However, Sano reprimanded Amaki for disregarding his advice since their last encounter. Amaki explained he had come to check on Haraki's performance and ensure he was fulfilling his duties. He then pleaded with the group to let him impersonate Haraki for the day, as he knew no one else in the school. Back in the classroom, the group introduced Amaki to the students, claiming he was Haraki, who had lost his memory. One student joked that Amaki seemed unchanged despite the fire incident, while Nyoto remarked that although Haraki's memory might have been affected, his style remained intact. Sano added that Haraki's behavior and speech had shifted slightly after the incident. Later, Otaga entered the classroom, apologizing for her lateness and explaining that she had been rescuing a cat from thieves. Nyoto teased Exami, doubting his earlier claim about the cat. Exami admitted to fabricating the story, which annoyed Nyoto. Amaki reassured Otaga and invited her to sit. As Otaga settled in, she suddenly transformed into a skeleton, shocking everyone. Nyoto commented on the bizarre transformation, and Otaga explained it was a result of the effort she had exerted while running. Amaki fainted from the shock, unaccustomed to dealing with yokai. Sano silently admitted his own unease around yokai. After recovering, Amaki attributed his fainting to lingering effects of the earlier incident and urged the class to begin. Fukachi brought out a winter uniform that Haraki loved, hoping it would jog his memory. To everyone's surprise, it triggered an unusual reaction from Haraki, prompting the students to suggest medical intervention. Later, Amaki, Sano, the short student, and Higita went to the restroom. Higita urged Amaki to better imitate his brother's behavior. Amaki confessed he had never liked school uniforms until now. At that moment, Nagita, a yokai student, appeared, joking about their gathering in the restroom. Higita confronted Nagita, warning him not to introduce any new concoctions. Nagita revealed he had created a special potion in the chemistry club, claiming it would restore Haraki's memory. Amaki expressed doubt, pointing out Nagita's lack of expertise in chemistry. Nagita confidently admitted he lacked expertise in chemistry, but argued that modern smartphones allowed yokai to access any knowledge they needed. Declaring his love for science, he expressed his determination to continue studying it. As Nagita spoke, Sano snatched the potion from his hand and poured it over him, transforming Nagita into a liquid puddle. Using tongs, Sano collected the puddle and disposed of it in the restroom. Afterward, Sano asked Amaki if he was adjusting to the presence of the yokai. Amaki replied that he was fine as long as the students maintained their human forms. Later, Kodo fell down the stairs, prompting the short student to ask what had happened. Kodo explained that she had lost her balance and twisted her ankle. Amaki approached to assist, but Kodo, flustered and annoyed, scolded him for touching her and instead clung to Sano in frustration. Irritated, Sano told Koto he would take her to the clinic to ensure she was fine, commenting that the siblings shared similarly foolish traits. Amaki carried Koto to the clinic where she questioned his recent coldness toward her. Amaki remained silent, internally lamenting that he was carrying a yokai and wondering what he had done to deserve it. Consumed by his fear, Amaki fainted, collapsing and dropping Koto in the process. Hijita sighed, noting they now had 2 people to take to the clinic. Amaki regained consciousness later and saw Sano standing beside him. Sano explained that Amaki had fainted, so he had brought him to the clinic. Other students, including Exami and Nyoto, expressed concern for Amaki. Nyoto even presented a new potion, claiming it could restore memory, while the yokai twins brought photo books Amaki liked, hoping they would help. Before the twins could proceed, the teachers Hataki and Mano intervened, confiscating the books and promising to discipline the twins. They checked on Amaki and admired the plants that Haraki cared for. Surprised by the affection others showed toward Haraki, Amaki told Sano he would leave and requested that the events of the day remain secret from Haraki. Sano agreed and went to Hijita, who teased him for enjoying Amaki's belief in his earlier claims. Later, Sano unlocked the restroom door for Haraki. Haraki burst out, overjoyed, but his undignified exit irritated Sano, who struck him and told him to stay away. Later, Haraki encountered Momo and apologized for scaring her earlier. Momo denied being frightened, but her yokai nature betrayed her when a secondary mouth at the back of her head rudely insulted Haraki, calling him an idiot, which embarrassed her deeply. Haraki reassured her, saying it wasn't her fault, and asked if she had planned to give anyone a gift that day. The secondary mouth rudely interrupted again, but Haraki deduced that Momo had prepared a gift for Sano to thank him for helping her during a competition when Hijita had accidentally thrown up on her. The second mouth sarcastically praised Haraki's intelligence while mocking his overall uselessness. Haraki acknowledged that Sano's birthday was approaching and mentioned it might be difficult for Momo to present the gift. Nagita suddenly appeared, having overheard their conversation. He teased Momo about her situation but offered her a perfume he had crafted, promising it would enhance her femininity. Nagita approached the group and sprayed his perfume on them. Haraki immediately commented that the scent resembled a fish with a human face when angry. Nagita admitted that he forgot to include the waste-removing ingredient in the perfume, but defended himself by stating he couldn't smell, since he lacked a nose. Haraki, frustrated, questioned why Nagita made perfumes if he couldn't even smell them. Later, Hijita and Nyoto joined the scene, noticing the unusual scent. Hijita approached Momo, took her hands, and told her she was beautiful, expressing his newfound affection for her. Momo's second mouth mocked Hijita, doubting he could ask her out since he vomited so often. Hijita, undeterred, confessed his love for her, which embarrassed Momo further. Nyoto tried to pull Hijita away from Momo, but other male students, enchanted by the perfume, surrounded her, professing their love. Momo, Nyoto, and Haraki ran away, trying to escape the chaos. Nyoto asked Haraki why everyone was chasing Momo. Nagita revealed that the perfume he sprayed on her was designed to attract all males, specifically yokai, due to its special composition. Nyoto asked why Haraki was unaffected, and Nagita explained that the perfume only influenced yokai, as it contained yokai-specific materials. The group reached the end of the hallway, realizing there was no way out. The crowd of enchanted students continued to close in. Haraki called out for Sano, hoping he could help, but Sano was on his way home from school. Later, Sano returned to school after hearing Haraki's call for help. He kicked the approaching students, knocking them down. Nyoto explained the situation, and Sano, unaffected by the perfume, became furious with Nagita. The students, however, stood back up and approached Momo again. Nyoto urged Sano to use his yokai powers. Sano tried using his magic but accidentally worsened the situation by tearing the students' clothes, which caused further embarrassment. Nagita suggested Momo needed to wash off the perfume, but with no nearby water source, the problem seemed unsolvable. Haraki came up with a solution by summoning the plants he cared for. The plants brought a large container filled with water, where a fish lived. Haraki instructed Sano to carry Momo and jump into the water to wash off the perfume. Sano carried Momo and jumped into the container. The water neutralized the perfume, causing everyone to return to normal. The students, however, were shocked to find themselves without clothes. Haraki checked on Sano, who confirmed he was fine. Sano then asked Momo if she was okay, and she expressed her gratitude, thanking him for his help. Momo handed Sano a gift, explaining it was a handkerchief to replace the one he had given her during the sports festival. When Sano opened the gift, it turned out to be women's underwear instead. The students were shocked, and Exami exclaimed that Sano had received women's underwear as a gift. This caused an uproar among the students. Momo, embarrassed, apologized to Sano, explaining that the handkerchief section was next to the underwear section, and she had made a mistake. Sano accepted her apology but refused the gift, promising to deal with the students who were making a scene. This made Momo happy, as she found Sano's kindness endearing. Later, Sano, Hijita, the short student, and Zakshi went to the public bath since their dorm's water supply was unavailable. Zakshi mistakenly entered the women's bath, where her friend informed her that Momo had a question for her. Momo approached Zakshi and whispered something in her ear, but Zakshi repeated it out loud, causing everyone to hear. Momo's second mouth commented that whispering was pointless with someone like Zakshi. Zakshi replied that she didn't know anything about Sano's romantic life, while two yokai students nearby overheard and remarked on Sano's good looks but childish personality. Zakshi then asked her friend Otaga about her love life, teasing her about a boy from another class who had proposed to her. Otaga, flustered, denied having feelings for him, stating she was focused on her studies and future. Zakshi teased Otaga further, claiming everyone knew she had feelings for Nyoto, which shocked the others. Otaga, embarrassed, covered Zakshi's mouth to stop her from talking. Koto reflected on the beauty of romance and recalled how Amaki had carried her after she fell down the stairs, although she mistakenly believed it was Haraki. Meanwhile, Haraki entered the men's bath, announcing his arrival loudly and causing another commotion. Zakshi, unimpressed by the chaos Haraki caused, commented that Sano wouldn't tolerate such behavior. She added that Sano wasn't suitable for her and expressed a desire for a more brazen man, which left her friends feeling awkward and embarrassed. In the men's bath, the students washed up together. Hijita, sitting beside Haraki, remarked on Haraki's tall and broad stature, calling him a giant compared to himself. However, nearby girls overheard the conversation and misunderstood its context, imagining something entirely different, which caused them to panic. The short student, feeling self-conscious, told Haraki he was envious of their height. Haraki reassured him, telling him he was fine just the way he was. In the women's bath, Zakshi stacked some buckets to peek into the men's bath to see what they were doing. She muttered that men wouldn't behave that way. Momo, realizing Zakshi's intent, tried to stop her, warning her that she might see Sano naked. However, when Momo heard that Sano wasn't particularly tall, she changed her mind and decided to help Zakshi peek, insisting she'd go next. Otago, shocked by their behavior, tried to stop them. However, in her flustered state, she unintentionally transformed into her skeletal form, startling everyone. During this commotion, Otago also accidentally saw the boys. Nyoto noticed the chaos and asked Otago what she was doing. Otago, embarrassed, claimed she had been startled by a mouse and transformed by accident. She covered her eyes to avoid seeing anything else, returned to her normal form, and splashed water on Zakshi and Momo, scolding them for their actions. Zakshi, slightly jealous, teased Otago, saying she must have seen something. Otago denied it, but Momo's second mouth accused her of lying. Eventually, Otago admitted she had seen the boys but downplayed it, calling the scene unimpressive and comparing it to a zoo. Nyoto overheard her comment and, surprised, asked what she meant by that. Zakshi pressed Otago for clarification, but Otago dismissed the matter, saying she had barely seen anything clearly. She added that her focus was on Nyoto, causing Zakshi to tease her further. Zakshi suggested they leave the bath and have some fun. After leaving the baths, the girls ran into Nyoto, Haraki, and Sano. When Haraki saw them, he ran away in embarrassment. Otago tried to apologize to Nyoto for what had happened earlier, but Nyoto brushed it off as a misunderstanding and walked away as well. Meanwhile, the remaining boys confronted the girls, saying they had overheard every word and wouldn't forgive them for their comments. The boys warned the girls not to compare or judge them again before leaving in frustration. Otago tried calling out to them to explain and apologize, but no one listened. Momo, still upset, silently worried about Sano, feeling guilty about the situation. Hataki walked down the school corridor, exhaustion evident in his every step. Suddenly, a black feather drifted down in front of him, unmistakably from a crow. He paused, muttering under his breath that it must be an omen of bad news. Before he could dwell on the thought, a voice called his name from behind. As he turned, the air around him filled with fluttering black feathers, creating an unsettling atmosphere. Elsewhere, Haraki and Mano sat together watching the news. The report detailed strange incidents involving a creature abducting animals, stripping them of their fur, and returning them unharmed but visibly distressed. Some of these animals were now being treated at Dr. Takahashi's clinic. Haraki, frustrated, speculated that this was the work of a malicious yokai. Mano agreed, lamenting the corruption they faced in their world. Haraki couldn't resist teasing Mano about his tendency to waste time pursuing women. Mano quickly defended himself, declaring that he had never even been on a date, a fact Haraki reluctantly admitted was true for him as well. Mano insisted his disinterest in women was a conscious choice, and pleaded with Haraki to use his demon-banishing powers to protect him if the yokai appeared. Haraki suggested that Sano would be a better option, as his powers were far superior. As if summoned by the conversation, Sano appeared, casually cutting a lock of Haraki's hair. He joked that every teacher needed a student to protect them, much to Haraki's irritation. Sano then asked if they had seen the short student he was searching for. Haraki replied that he hadn't, and Mano suggested the student should be in class with Hataki, who wouldn't tolerate lateness. Other students arrived with concerning news. Hataki had not shown up for class, which was highly unusual. As they speculated about his absence, a breaking news update reported another yokai attack, this time in broad daylight, with 2 individuals abducted. Alarmed, Sano rushed to a nearby window, calling out for the missing student. Peering outside, Sano saw the plants below swaying unnaturally. The plants relayed troubling news. The yokai had captured both the short student and Hataki, locking them in a cage and taking them away. Mano urged the students to alert the police immediately. Meanwhile, Hataki and the short student awoke inside a cage surrounded by others holding captured yokai. The creatures looked defeated, unable to escape. Hataki attempted to rouse the student, who groggily apologized for not paying attention in class. Hataki asked if they were still at the school, but the student observed that their eerie surroundings made that unlikely. Suddenly, black feathers began to rain down again, and 3 figures emerged from the shadows. Their leader introduced them as the Karasawa team, a self-proclaimed group of villains. The short student, unimpressed, mocked the name as terrible. The leader, visibly hurt, lamented that he had spent sleepless nights coming up with it. One of his companions agreed, remarking that they had warned him the name wasn't great. A third member monitoring the security cameras interrupted, announcing that 3 individuals, Sano, Mano, and Haraki, were approaching. Furious, the leader complained that they hadn't even had the chance to cut their prisoner's hair yet. Outside the abandoned building, the plant companion informed Haraki, Sano, and Mano that they had reached the location of their captured friends. Examining the hideout, Sano commented on how stereotypical it looked for villains. Haraki handed his plant companion to Sano and Mano, instructing them to keep it safe while he moved ahead. Mano's plant companion, meanwhile, perched itself on his head, much to his annoyance. Frustrated, Mano grabbed the plant, scolding it for being heavy. The plant indignantly protested, claiming it was incredibly light and that Mano was holding it too tightly. Mano turned to Haraki for help, but realized that both Haraki and Sano had already disappeared. The plant smugly informed Mano that his complaints had delayed the others, blaming him for their departure. Adding insult to injury, the plant teasingly called him a harasser, enraging Mano further. He loudly denied any inappropriate relationships with women, only to notice a group of women nearby watching him in awe. Embarrassed and flustered, Mano awkwardly questioned where all these women had come from. The plant companion mocked Mano again, questioning his confidence in interacting with women. Mano defensively claimed he was well-versed in dealing with girls because of his 5 older sisters. However, just as he finished boasting, the group of women approached him, causing him to panic. In a desperate attempt to escape, Mano threw the plant aside and bolted, creating a loud commotion that startled everyone nearby. Hearing the noise, Sano assumed someone from their group had been captured. His own plant companion, sitting on his shoulder, remarked that they might have strayed from their path. Sano dismissed the comment, confidently asserting that they were on the right track and that it was the others who had wandered off. Suddenly, multiple Harakas appeared, surrounding Sano and clinging to him tightly. Realizing something was amiss, Sano accused the clones of being a result of Haraki's ability to replicate himself, suspecting that Haraki wasn't entirely human. Elsewhere, the Karasawa team's leader was celebrating their supposed success. He proudly declared that they had captured the two strongest members and tricked them into their trap. One of his subordinates prepared a sharp tool, ready to cut hair. Hataki, still trapped in the cage, questioned the bizarre obsession with cutting hair, asking what they intended to do with it. The villain smugly explained that they auctioned it online to wealthy buyers, earning a fortune from the sales. The short student, unimpressed, called the scheme pathetic and degrading. When one of the villains approached to cut his hair, the student protested fiercely, even blaming Hataki for their predicament. This betrayal infuriated Hataki, who accused the student of lying and denied any responsibility. The villain, growing tired of the argument, grabbed Hataki, deciding to start with him instead. Meanwhile, the Karasawa leader, monitoring the surveillance cameras, noticed Haraki wandering nearby and ordered his team to deal with him immediately. Haraki, lost and dejected, began to tear up. His plant companion reassured him, saying it could hear distant screams and was certain their friends were in trouble. It pointed to a faint light in the distance and urged Haraki to follow it. The light led Haraki to a convenience store where two middle school boys were hanging out. Seeing them, Haraki froze, intimidated by their presence and fearing they might be aggressive. Annoyed by Haraki's hesitation, the plant companion smacked him on the head, encouraging him to be brave and reminding him of his role as a teacher and protector. Reinvigorated by the plant's words, Haraki approached the boys with renewed confidence. He firmly instructed them not to loiter in front of the store as they were blocking the entrance. The boys, irritated by the interruption, mocked Haraki and asked if he was looking for a fight. Haraki denied this, but warned them about the danger of venomous insects in the area. The boys dismissed his concerns and continued to taunt him. Losing his patience, Haraki used his exorcist powers to force them to move. To his shock, the boys transformed into tree trunks, as did the women who had approached Mano and the clones surrounding Sano. Stunned, Haraki stood frozen as his plant companion explained that the individuals must have been under a yokai spell, which had turned them into manifestations of their greatest fear. From above, the feathered villain descended, intrigued by the scene. He demanded to know how Haraki had managed to break the powerful spell and questioned what kind of strength he possessed. Feigning ignorance, Haraki lied, claiming to be a chemical worker investigating a leak in a nearby factory. The feathered villain laughed mockingly and pointed out that the building was not a factory, but a candy warehouse. Realizing his lie had been exposed, Haraki awkwardly bowed and apologized. The feathered villain admitted he had been lying as well and asked if Haraki was a teacher at the yokai school. Haraki, refusing to answer, insisted on his right to remain silent. When the villain approached, Haraki warned him not to come closer, admitting that he wouldn't be able to defend himself if attacked. Ignoring the warning, the villain grabbed Haraki and lifted him into the air. However, the Karasawa team's leader intervened, ordering the feathered villain to release him. The leader revealed that he recognized Haraki, and seemed to know more about him than he had let on. The leader approached Haraki with a confident demeanor, confirming that he indeed recognized him. He expressed genuine surprise at encountering Haraki in such a setting, and remarked on the enduring strength of Haraki's powers, especially his exorcist spirit. Meanwhile, the third villain roamed the area, muttering to himself and searching for something. From behind a crate, 3 animals emerged, whispering among themselves about their narrow escape. They credited teacher Hataki, who had managed to cut through the cage to free them before the villain could cut their fur. Hataki, standing nearby, reassured the animals, proudly claiming that he could cut through anything. Eksami, one of the animals, expressed relief but pointed out that many other animals had already fled, leaving them behind. He added nervously that if they were caught again, the villains might not just shave their fur, but might also cook and eat them. In a burst of fear, Eksami cried out that he didn't want to be cooked because he still had dreams to fulfill in life. Hataki comforted him, promising to help him achieve those dreams. When asked about his aspirations, Eksami revealed his dream of building a beautiful family, a husband, a wife, a son, a daughter, and a well-behaved cat. Both Hataki and the short student were startled by the statement, especially when Eksami casually added that he wouldn't mind living as the family's obedient cat as long as he was well fed. Hataki laughed, teasing Eksami that he already behaved like an obedient cat. The short student asked Eksami if he had shared these plans with Nudo. Eksami replied that he hadn't yet, deciding to only share his dreams once Nudo found a partner. Hataki chuckled, calling Exami far from straightforward. Exami then turned the question on the short student, asking if he would live with Sano after getting married. Without hesitation, the short student confidently stated that Sano would never marry because he loved no one but him. The odd statement caught Hataki's attention, who couldn't help but find it peculiar. Before he could comment, the searching villain appeared and seized the short student. Declaring triumphantly that he had finally caught them, the villain instilled fear in the group. The short student cried out for Sano, prompting the villain to ask who Sano was. The student described Sano as his wonderful friend, and just as he spoke, Sano appeared behind the villain, striking him and forcing him to release the student. Mano arrived shortly afterward, relieved to see everyone safe. The short student ran into Sano's arms, hugging him tightly and admitting how frightened he had been. The villain, regaining consciousness, angrily vowed not to be defeated so easily. Using his powers, he hurled a stone at them, transforming it into a massive boulder that began rolling toward them. Sano, Mano, and the others ran, with Sano marveling at the bizarre magic that could create such a transformation. As they fled, the winged villain descended, offering a sinister deal. He promised to spare their lives if they surrendered their companions. Sano refused without hesitation and kept running. Mano, growing desperate, jokingly suggested that surrendering them might not be such a bad idea. Exami, irritated, retorted that if Mano were in their place, he'd likely do the same and would probably end up getting all his fur shaved off. Exami taunted Mano, mocking him as nothing more than a drunkard who liked to strip and had a single horn on his head. Mano, enraged by the comment, proclaimed himself as the Great Mano. To prove his strength, he halted the massive boulder in its tracks, boasting that if Saki were there, he would have destroyed it effortlessly. Exami, unrelenting, joked that if Mano were drunk, he'd probably destroy the boulder while fleeing in fear. The winged villain reappeared, summoning an even larger barrage of boulders and hurling them at Mano. Though Mano tried his best to fend them off, he quickly found himself overwhelmed by the relentless assault. Meanwhile, Horaki stood with the villain, leader, and the winged villain. The leader, intrigued, questioned Horaki's lineage, asking if he was the grandson of Sikan. When Horaki confirmed it, the leader expressed delight and attempted to persuade Horaki to join their side. He urged Horaki to abandon the school, forsake the principal, and use his powers for evil. Before Horaki could respond, the school principal suddenly appeared, interrupting their conversation. The villain leader, mocking, remarked that the principal shouldn't speak his name unless he was present. The principal, unfazed, firmly stated that he was there now. Overcome with relief, Horaki ran to hug the principal, admitting how frightened he had been. However, the principal coldly kicked him away, directing his focus on the villain leader. The principal confronted the villain leader, demanding that he stop targeting the school's teachers and exploiting them for his schemes. The villain leader refused, taunting the principal and questioning why he didn't simply expel the teachers he sought to protect. The principal maintained his composure, sternly asking how long the villain leader intended to pursue such petty crimes, insisting it was time to stop. The villain leader, defiant, declared that he would never stop, asserting that this was the life he had chosen. He further claimed that the principal had no right to judge him, as they were more alike than the principal would admit. Meanwhile, Sano and Mano found themselves cornered by the winged villain in a place with no apparent escape. The villain taunted Sano, challenging him to surrender or face the same fate as Mano under the crushing weight of the boulders. Sano, resolute, refused to give up. Drawing on Horaki's advice, he used his magic strategically, targeting the support structures beneath the stones. This clever move caused the rocks to collapse and trap Horaki, the principal, and two of the villains under the rubble. The third villain, seeing his comrades trapped, panicked and began freeing them from the debris, urging them to retreat immediately. Horaki, however, insisted they capture the villains before they could escape. As the villains tried to flee, they stumbled into a muddy quagmire. Two of them suggested abandoning their comrade to save themselves, but the third villain, furious, pulled them into the mud with him, shouting that they wouldn't leave him behind. Suddenly, Higgett arrived with the rest of the students, announcing that authorities were on their way to arrest the villains. In a desperate attempt to escape, one of the villains cast a spell, flinging mud everywhere and vanishing into the chaos with his team. Fleeing into hiding, the villains remarked that their pursuers were far more dangerous than they could ever be. Back at school, Horaki, Exami, and the short student regrouped. Exami, visibly upset, read a newspaper article that credited others for rescuing the captured animals. Horaki tried to console him, emphasizing that what mattered most was everyone's safety, and the fact that the villains had been apprehended. Eksami then admitted that he had stolen a wallet from one of the villains during the commotion and handed it to Haraki. Disapproving, Haraki reminded Eksami that stooping to theft was wrong, especially since the villains weren't mere thieves themselves. He set the wallet aside, resolving to deal with it properly. Later, one of the villains, now disguised, approached Haraki and demanded the return of the wallet, proposing a meeting that night for an exchange. The villain revealed that he had taken Haraki's wallet as leverage. However, upon discovering that Haraki's wallet contained far less money than the one Eksami had taken, the villain grew frustrated. In a fit of anger, he threw Haraki's wallet back at him, venting about its lack of value. Haraki mentioned that they were spending a day on the beach, calling it camping day. However, the teacher Hataki arrived and approached Haraki and Manawa, telling them they were wasting time. He explained that the students had ghost science tests coming up. Haraki questioned whether the day was solely meant for camping. Hatake then led the teachers and students to an old, abandoned school. He informed them that this place would be their training ground, where they would learn to recognize their own energy and how to use it in different situations. He also stated they would spend the day and night there until the following morning. The students divided into groups and began exploring the place. Haraki expressed his belief that their group might encounter some yokai. Nudo replied to Haraki, pointing out that they were already yokai themselves. Moving to another group, Nudo noted how the place wasn't as dusty as one would expect from an abandoned school. A boy with green hair suggested that the lack of dust might be because another school had been here just a week ago. A member of the third group shared that the last time another class stayed overnight in this place, they felt a sense of depression. Surprising everyone, the students set up their bedding on the floor of a classroom. Nudo asked whether they would actually sleep in a classroom, while Haraki found the idea exciting. Hatake informed them that the only restroom was located at the end of the corridor on the other side of the building. A female student joked that they now had their own private bathroom. Higeta remarked that no one should spy on them, which angered the girls, who denied ever doing such a thing, calling him a fool. Haraki suggested chatting a little before sleeping, but Sano questioned his desire to interact so much with the other students. Haraki asked who among them had a girlfriend, but no one responded, leaving the group in awkward silence. Higeta enthusiastically declared they would date girls that summer, but the students half-heartedly replied with a reluctant, "Yes." Hatake interrupted Haraki, stepping on his neck, reprimanding him for discussing love with the students, calling it inappropriate. Haraki admitted he had anticipated Hatake's intervention. Hatake then carried Haraki out of the sleeping area and instructed the students to sleep. When no one complied, he warned them that the teacher Mano, who never sleeps, would give a goodnight kiss to anyone still awake. This threat was enough to get everyone to sleep immediately. Later in the night, Akasami woke up and roused Nudo, asking him to accompany him to the bathroom. As they walked together, Akasami's fear was evident. Nudo questioned how a yokai could be afraid of ghosts and yokai. Akasami explained that ghosts were different. They were the dead. Nudo reassured him, reminding him that yokai's job was to scare humans, so there was nothing for them to fear. Suddenly, they encountered a girl with multiple arms standing in their path. She questioned why they were walking around at night, holding on to each other. Nudo countered by asking why she, Ringo, was standing alone at night. She explained that Konako had gone to the restroom an hour ago and hadn't returned, causing her to worry. Nudo suggested they head to the restroom to look for Konako. Upon arriving, Nudo stayed outside while Akasami called out to him repeatedly for reassurance. Shortly after, Nudo heard Ringo speaking to someone. He called out to Akasami, but there was no response. Frustrated, Nudo warned Akasami he was entering and had only himself to blame. Inside the restroom, Nudo began searching for Akasami. Suddenly, the sound of running water echoed through the room, accompanied by the sight of bloody handprints on the walls. A pair of hands reached out from behind him. Akasami appeared after finishing in the bathroom, commenting on how remarkable and unique the place was. He then went to wash up, unaware of an evil spirit looming behind him. When Akasami called out to Nudo again, no one responded. Soon, he heard footsteps approaching. Turning around, he saw numerous feet coming toward him, overwhelming him with fear. In the teacher's room, Akasami suddenly emerged from under Haraki's bed, startling him due to the eerie darkness. Haraki demanded to know why Akasami was there at such a late hour. Akasami recounted everything that had happened to him. Soon after, other students arrived, reporting that more classmates had gone missing. Haraki was shocked to learn that 10 students from his class including Nyudo, were now missing. At that moment, teacher Hatake addressed them through a microphone, joined by the other two teachers. Hatake told the students that by now, they must have realized the gravity of the situation and were likely terrified. He reassured them that this was part of the yokai tests he had mentioned earlier. He explained that several yokai graduates were inside the building, tasked with scaring and capturing the students. Akasami asked Hatake what they were supposed to do now. Hatake revealed that one of the yokai had the key to the building's main door. To escape, the students would need to find this key. Haraki asked what his role in this challenge was. Hatake admitted he hadn't assigned Haraki a specific role, but suggested he stay with the students to encourage them, as they were his class. Higeta expressed frustration, claiming Haraki's presence would only slow them down. A student with green hair argued that Haraki, being a teacher, should stay with the other teachers instead. Annoyed, Hatake shouted at them through the microphone to silence them, his loud voice startling everyone. A bespectacled student asked what would happen if all of them were captured and failed to find the key. Hatake replied that, in such a case, they would spend half of their summer vacation teaching yokai. The students protested in unison, declaring this was too much to endure. Hatake reminded them that success in this test was their only way out, and announced the challenge was officially starting. They had to find the key before dawn. The students, along with Haraki, split into 4 groups: paper, scissors, rock, and heart. The heart group, including Haraki, stood in the hallway. Sano questioned a student named Fujo about his habit of dressing like girls. Fujo admitted he enjoyed imitating the opposite gender. As they spoke, a girl descended from above and startled them by asking if they had time to chat. The group panicked, but Fujo faced the girl calmly, used a spell to freeze her in place, and declared she would remain that way until morning. Meanwhile, the first group was overwhelmed with fear, as they were chased by a skeleton, an anatomical figure, and a neon entity. They felt like they were in a race and fled into the nurse's office. There they encountered the school doctor, who greeted them warmly. He revealed he had been at the school for some time and mentioned that many yokai were present, including himself. He disclosed that he had graduated 100 years ago and wasn't alone. The doctor asked if the students had heard of the yokai known as Yamanba. 3 female nurses appeared behind the students, welcoming them with eerie smiles. The nurses then revealed their true forms, transforming their faces and explaining that they consumed humans for being deliciously terrifying. The nurses informed the students they couldn't escape and must now undergo a complete medical examination. Without warning, the nurses attacked the students inside the room. The second group overheard that the first group had failed the test, reducing their numbers and chances of obtaining the key. A short student exclaimed that if they didn't hurry, they too would be caught. The white yokai reassured them, stating that no harm would come to them and that he had a special potion that could destroy anyone who approached. However, he was suddenly struck by a band that transformed him into a duplicate of himself, creating 2 white yokai. This left everyone confused, as both began arguing and accusing each other of being imposters. The students restrained both yokai to prevent further chaos. The short student suggested launching them both into space, but one yokai protested, claiming to be the real one and innocent. The other accused the group of envying his abilities and wanting to eliminate him. The students debated which yokai was genuine. The green monster pointed out that the real white yokai would never despair as the duplicate did. The short student agreed, saying the real one would neither apologize nor doubt himself, calling the duplicate a filthy imposter. The group released the real white yokai, who then revealed a special explosive potion he had created. He threatened to use it, terrifying everyone. When he threw the potion, it caused a massive explosion, but the group ultimately failed, unable to identify the true white yokai. Meanwhile, the third group stood outside the broadcast room trying to enter. One student turned around and saw something strange, urging Higeta to look as well. Higeta spotted a group of flying yokai and identified them as the 100 Demons. The yokai noticed the group and entered through the windows, prompting the students to flee in terror. As they ran, they encountered a train-like vehicle filled with skeletons, which captured all the students except for Higeta. The train vanished into the distance, leaving Higeta determined to find the key and rescue his friends. The fourth group learned that the other teams had been captured, leaving only them and Higeta. Haraki remarked that all the groups had been taken except Higeta. Sano expressed concern about the short student Miyame, who was also captured. Akasami, enraged, transformed into a cat, unsheathing his claws, and vowed to confront the yokai graduates and teach them a lesson. However, seeing Nudo appear before him, Akasami froze in fear and reverted to his normal form. Haraki asked Nudo if he was safe. Nudo confirmed he was unharmed, but revealed that he had encountered a yokai and decided to hide in an empty classroom. Akasami scolded Nudo for ignoring his earlier calls for help, but Nudo apologized, explaining he was being chased by a ghostly yokai. Nudo then asked if they had found the key. Haraki admitted they hadn't and speculated whether the key could be with teacher Hatake. Nudo doubted this possibility. Haraki privately told Sano that Nudo seemed strange and different. Nudo overheard and questioned what they were discussing. Haraki quickly changed the topic to avoid suspicion. Suddenly, the rat teacher appeared, holding the key. Everyone was shocked to see him in possession of it. Haraki asked if he truly had the key to the exit gate. The rat teacher confirmed this, but stated he wanted to play with them to shed some weight. He then began fleeing, forcing the group to chase after him. Akasami transformed into his cat form, unsheathing his claws as he chased after the rat teacher to seize the key. Despite repeated attempts, exhaustion overtook him. At that moment, Fujo arrived and cast a freezing spell, immobilizing the rat teacher on the spot. Akasami quickly grabbed the key, but Sano noticed something odd and asked why the key was bent. Fujo confronted the rat teacher, demanding to know what the key was. The rat teacher admitted it wasn't a key at all, but a piece of candy for his dinner. Enraged, Fujo hurled the rat teacher upward with great force, breaking the ceiling. This unexpected turn of events revealed teachers Hatake and Mano, who were astonished by the dramatic scene. Haraki informed the teachers that they had found nothing useful on that floor and suggested moving to the first floor, mentioning that Higeta was on the third floor. As they descended the stairs, Haraki noticed bloody handprints on the walls and called out to Sano, asking him to look around. Sano asked what was wrong, only to be surrounded by ghostly hands and hear a girl calling his name. When he turned, fear gripped him, but Haraki seemed captivated by the girl's outfit and hair color, approaching her due to his preference for such appearances. Both the students and teachers watching on the surveillance cameras were shocked by his reckless behavior. Nudo intervened, pulling Haraki away and reminding him that it was inappropriate to engage with the ghost. They all fled quickly, but the yokai managed to capture Akasami. Haraki attempted to rescue him, but Nudo stopped him, warning against getting caught as well. Fujo then stepped forward and froze the yokai, instructing Akasami to run. Akasami commented on Fujo's sharp tongue, but admitted he was incredibly brave and strong. A green yokai suddenly appeared above Fujo and restrained him. Despite Fujo urging him to flee, Akasami refused, declaring he wouldn't abandon him. Suddenly, a train filled with skeletons barreled toward them. Just as it seemed they were doomed, the train sank into the mud. Haraki exclaimed that it must have been Higeta, who then emerged and defeated the skeletons by trapping them in the mud. Higeta asked if they had found the key, to which Haraki replied that they hadn't, but stressed it wasn't the right time to search due to the approaching yokai. Higeta instructed them to search other areas while he dealt with the yokai. Fujo offered to stay and help Higeta fight. Meanwhile, the remaining students sprinted toward the entrance, believing the key might be there. As Sano pondered the situation, Nudo asked him what he was thinking about. Sano explained he was trying to piece together the events. Akasami encouraged him, expressing confidence that Sano would figure it out. Haraki, however, lamented the lack of clues from the teachers, calling it an unnecessary burden. Sano dismissed his complaints, recalling Hatake's earlier statement that Araki's role was to support them. Sano connected the dots, realizing the significance of Haraki's words. Meanwhile, Fujo and Higeta continued fighting the yokai. Fujo attacked them, frustrated that they didn't have the key, while Higeta tried to restrain him, pointing out the futility of his actions. Back in the surveillance room, the teachers monitored the remaining team. Hatake speculated that they wouldn't find the key and would fail, just as the other teams had. Mano urged him to wait. The remaining students stood in front of the exit, feeling defeated. Nudo remarked that they had no key and no yokai nearby, concluding that this must be the end. Just then, Higeta and Fujo joined them from behind. Sano, refusing to give up, grabbed Haraki's hand and asked if he had the key. Haraki smiled and revealed the key, shocking everyone. He then walked to the entrance and unlocked the door just before sunrise. Akasami, furious, questioned Haraki for not telling them he had the key. He extended his claws and dug them into Haraki's arm. Araki calmly explained that he had been giving them hints all along. Nyudo asked Sano how he figured out that Araki had the key. Sano explained that he had paid attention to Araki's words, particularly when he said his role was to support them and when he directed them to the first floor. Sano also noticed that Araki kept his left hand in his pocket, frequently checking to ensure he didn't drop something. Nyudo praised Sano's observation skills. However, Akasami suddenly turned to Nyudo and asked, "Who are you? You're not Nyudo." The imposter smirked and asked how Akasami had figured it out. Akasami explained that the real Nyudo, his childhood friend, would never abandon him when he was captured. The imposter admitted defeat, revealing himself to be a detective in disguise. The revelation shocked everyone as the detective explained that he too had graduated from this school and had been masquerading as the white yokai. Araki, visibly angry, accused the detective of lying and misleading them. The detective countered, asking if Araki always behaved so recklessly around girls. Araki defensively replied that he simply admired their uniforms. The detective jokingly threatened to reserve a cell for him just in case he committed any future misdeeds, causing Sano to laugh heartily. Araki felt momentarily cheered but was quickly saddened when Sano dismissed his attempt at light-hearted conversation. The scene shifted to the students who had failed, resting on their beds. Akasami checked on Nyudo, who slowly regained consciousness, and jokingly asked if Akasami had finished in the bathroom. Overwhelmed with relief, Akasami cried at the return of his real friend. Sano also made sure the short student was all right. Hatake approached Araki, congratulating him on a job well done. Araki watched the yokai graduates leave the building and asked about the girl in the school uniform. Hatake responded that no such girl existed. Araki, bewildered, insisted he had seen her and went to ask Sano about her. Sano replied that he hadn't seen anyone and claimed Araki was talking to a wall the entire time. Horrified, Araki wondered if he had truly been speaking to a wall. Akasami shared his eerie experience in the bathroom, hearing footsteps approaching him and questioning if this was part of the test. He believed it might have been a graduate, as they hadn't tried to capture him. Hatake jokingly replied, "Then you must be a ghost too." This comment spooked Araki, who became terrified and begged Hatake to let them leave the building. Araki even requested to share a bed with him that night because he was too scared to sleep alone. The next day, Akisami talked to his teacher, who looked very tired. The teacher explained that he was tired from visiting the student houses. Ringo's mother was going to eat him, and Maida's shark was going to eat him, and Oda's sister was also going to eat him. After that, Haruko checked the list of visits for the day and was shocked by what he saw. He asked Sano to join him in visiting Maizuka, the short student. Sano was surprised by this request, but they went together. When they arrived at Maizuka's house, they were amazed to see it was a huge mansion. Maizuka reassured them, saying, "Don't worry, we aren't a prestigious family." As they entered the house, the guards greeted them loudly, surprising Haruko and Sano. They were even more surprised to learn that Maizuka's family was part of a powerful alliance. Maizuka didn't understand why they reacted this way, but his siblings interrupted to ask if this was the perverted teacher Maizuka always mentioned. Haruko and Sano were astonished by how many siblings Maizuka had. He explained that he had about 30 brothers and sisters, and that he was the oldest. His siblings then introduced themselves and welcomed Haruko and Sano, who returned the greeting. One of the siblings, named Benz, spoke harshly to a servant, making her prepare the house for the guests. This scared the servant and surprised Haruko and Sano. Maizuka explained that Benz was the strongest candidate to lead the family, because she was brave and strong. Then, Haruko and Sano entered the house, where the atmosphere felt tense. The father asked Haruko how a human like him could teach his son, saying he didn't feel safe with Haruko in charge. Maizuka quickly interrupted, saying it was wrong to compare Haruko to other humans, and that it was an insult. Haruko pointed out that this statement insulted him too. Later, the father apologized and tried to pamper his son, but his wife stopped him from spoiling their son in front of guests. The father told Haruko he was uncomfortable with him and wondered if he could help the students with their problems. He also said he would test Haruko to see if he was worthy of being his son's teacher. Haruko was shocked to hear this. Maizuka explained that his father always tests teachers to see if they are good enough for his children. Sano asked what happened to the other teachers, and Maizuka replied that the only teacher who had left the house safely before was the one who had come last year. Haruko was confused and asked Benz why she was the only one. Benz replied that she knew the reason and whispered it in Haruko's ear. Then, Maizuka's father pulled out a spear and challenged Haruko to fight him to show his true strength. Haruko felt terrified and started to run away. The father chased after him, trying to kill him, but Haruko managed to dodge all his attacks. Sano watched and said that Haruko wouldn't be able to fight someone so dangerous. Haruko called out for Sano's help, which angered the father, who sarcastically remarked that it wasn't right for a teacher to ask his students for help. Haruko eventually fell to the ground, and the father seemed ready to finish him off. In a moment of desperation, Haruko tapped into the power of the Demon Slayer, shocking Sano, who knew that if anyone discovered Haruko had this power, he wouldn't be allowed to teach at the yokai school. But Haruko felt he had no choice. Then, Haruko recalled his final strategy. He stopped using his power and told the father that he understood why the previous teacher was the only one to leave safely. This made the father tense because Benz had informed him that last year's teacher worked in a nightclub that the father frequented. The father glared at Haruko and asked, "Are you threatening me?" Ignoring the father's question, Haruko said he could call his wife right then. Despite his fear, he gathered his courage to continue. The father dismissed Haruko and tried to ignore him, but Haruko spoke loudly enough for the wife to hear. The father shouted, "You coward! What are you doing? Do you think I'll respect you after this disgraceful act, you worthless little man?" Haruko replied, "It doesn't matter if I seem cowardly. What matters is that I am your children's teacher. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your respect, even if it means acting disgracefully." Both the father and the children were shocked by Haruko's words. Ultimately, the father recognized Haruko as his son's teacher but warned him that if anything happened to his son, he would throw Haruko into the sea to be eaten by fish. He added, "Take good care of my son." Haruko and the students felt overjoyed, while Benz was shocked by Haruko's courage, which had earned her father's acknowledgement of him as a teacher. Then, Maizuka's wife arrived and congratulated Haruko. She asked her husband when he had been to that nightclub, shocking him. She then started hitting him, splattering blood on the wall. Afterward, she told Haruko, "I'm proud of you for making my husband acknowledge you without using magic or yokai methods. I feel reassured that my children will be safe with you." Benz added that she never expected Haruko to come out of that situation alive. Haruko thanked her for helping him and for revealing the secret that saved him. Benz felt embarrassed and said she had worked hard to earn her parents' trust, so she wanted to reward him. Haruko replied that he didn't need any money, but she insisted she wouldn't give him money. Instead, she asked him to come closer and kissed him, shocking everyone. Benz then told Haruko that she wanted to be his future wife. Just then, Maizuka's father appeared again and objected to what had happened. He told Haruko that he needed to test him to prove his worthiness to be his daughter's husband and pulled out his spear again, causing Haruko to run away, wishing to end these home visits. The next day, after finishing the home visits, Haruko went to meet the teachers in Kyoto, a beautiful city that excited him. He was with one of the teachers and noticed they called each other by their first names, which surprised him. The disguised teacher, who looked like a keychain, explained that they had been friends for a long time, so using first names was normal. Haruko was about to share his first name but suddenly felt a strong urge to go to the bathroom. After that, one of the teachers recalled a memory from the past when they encountered Haruko during a school trip. A child was crying, and they asked him if he was lost. The child was scared and lay under a bench in the street, using yokai magic, which stunned the students. They were surprised when he used yokai magic to make a tree fall on them. One of the students lifted the tree and asked Haruko to talk to the child since he was human and wouldn't harm him. Haruko approached the child and asked for his name. The child replied that his name was Mei. Haruko tried to calm him down and asked if he had gotten separated from his family. The boy began crying, explaining that he had lost his brother. Haruko comforted him, saying that he was lost too. This surprised the other two students, who began questioning Haruko. Suspicion grew when they noticed a magical circle beneath the child, confirming that he was not human. Suddenly, using the magic circle, a pole fell and hit the two students. To distract the child, Haruko promised to buy him ice cream if he stopped crying. They went to an ice cream shop, where Haruko bought the boy some ice cream to cheer him up. Haruko then asked if the child had come here because his brother had gone to school, to which the child replied, yes. The other two students asked Haruko how he got lost. Haruko explained that he was on a field trip but lost his group. When Haruko asked for directions to Nagoya Station, the students stared at him in disbelief, saying, "You're in Kyoto, not Nagoya." Shocked, Haruko grew visibly tense. When the students asked what was wrong, he said he had been looking for a bathroom for a long time. One of them pointed him to a restroom nearby. However, Haruko claimed that if he moved a single step, he would wet himself. Seeing his desperation, one of the students carried Haruko and ran toward the restroom. The child also seemed to need the restroom and left his doll on a chair before going. When they returned, they realized that a garbage truck had taken the doll. The child was devastated. Haruko immediately ran after the truck to retrieve it. The other two students fired up, stole a bicycle from in front of the police station, and joined the chase. Eventually, they caught up with the garbage truck and saw their teacher, who had been grabbed by a bird. They struck the bird, causing the teacher to fall into the garbage truck. The teacher picked up the doll and threw it to Haruko, who returned it to the child. The child smiled with relief and happiness. Just then, the boy's older brother appeared, embracing him tightly and thanking the students for helping his brother. The brother offered a reward as thanks, but Haruko refused. However, the other two students accepted. The boy gave Haruko a protective talisman, saying he only had one, so they would need to divide it into 3 parts. Haruko thanked the child, and they bid farewell. However, the boy's brother appeared to dislike yokai, which was evident in his expression during the farewell. Later, Haruko asked the two students how they could divide the talisman. They told him to keep it, saying they didn't need it. Haruko was delighted by their gesture. The students suggested enjoying the rest of the day after safely returning the child to his brother. Haruko reminded them again that he was still lost and needed help, but they ignored him. At that moment, the principal of the yokai school appeared, grabbed the two students, and revealed that he had been watching everything they did. He then told Haruko that he had seen someone who looked like him shouting from the top of a tower. Haruko explained that it was his brother who must have come to find him. He quickly departed, saying farewell. The principal told Haruko they would meet again before turning to the two students, announcing that it was time for their punishment. In the present, 2 teachers commented they couldn't remember what the student looked like and seemed unaware that it was Haruko. Later, Haruko returned, and one of the disguised teachers asked if something was bothering him, as he looked unwell. Haruko replied that he was fine, but admitted feeling jealous of their close friendship. He regretted growing up without building such relationships, and wished he had worked harder to create meaningful memories. Apologizing for being overly emotional, Haruko turned to leave. However, the teachers reassured him, saying, "Aren't we worthy of being your friends? We're the same age, and even if we graduated from different schools, we're close enough." Haruko felt immense happiness hearing this. One of the teachers added that they were colleagues at work, but friends outside of it. Haruko smiled, saying he looked forward to working with them. Meanwhile, the students speculated about Haruko's current situation in Kyoto. Sano then recalled that he had once gotten lost in Kyoto as a child. Back then, strangers had helped him, and it turned out that Sano was the child Haruko had met in the past. He realized that he had been the same child whom gave Haruko the protective talisman.